crowded at that point. You know, um, maybe it's that.
I think it's the deluded, deranged ramblings of a person that's in extreme cognitive dissonance, mixed with a schizophrenic dose of what's the word I'm looking for? A schizophrenic level dose of
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by Neil, Paul, Righteous Force, Refracted Curvature, Brian's Logic, Sleeping Warrior, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Yo, 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 yo.
Hello.
Hey. Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
yo yo.
So this show has already started quite badly, so I've already run one live show and then the show crashed because I was actually connected fully to Element, but I am going to try and rejoin to that. So if this turns out to be a technical disaster and we end up crashing the show again, that said, I've instantly gone through the computer and up the voltage on the RAM, which I hope is going to be the solution to the problem as and when it arises. But there we go. Hopefully this will be a full live show. We shall see. But I'll reconnect to Element as there are a few people in there in a minute. But in the meantime, is there any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge that's a horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
Yes.
Before you do, hold on a sec. Before you get to that, hold on.
Hold
Can
on.
you hear Neil?
Go ahead, John.
Can you hear Neil?
Yes,
Nathan?
we hear you.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Well, no. Can you hear Neil?
Neil? I mean, should I be able to hear Neil? Was Neil talking?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear Neil. Shout out to Godzilla37. He says, "You're late. I want my money back. You've only just given it me." No refunds. Thank you for the super chat, Godzilla37. So, Earth
Should I
curve,
ask a
Anthony
question
said
again,
yes.
Nathan?
I don't know. Go ahead. What have we got?
So Simon Dan apparently turned 40. Happy birthday, Simon Dope. And he did a parachute jump from 14,000 feet. And he's got a video of it, and he's claiming that he saw lots of Earth curve from 14,000 feet. I didn't want to tell him about Neil deGrasse Tyson telling him that you can't see Earth curve from that, however it is he says it. 14,000 feet.
We debunked Earth curve in 2020.
Well, he's rinsing and repeating it, I'm afraid, Nathan. He's claiming to Drongos for cash that he can see Earth curve from 14,000 feet. All you got to do is a parachute jump.
You can tell you're not here very often at the moment. You're going to have to brush up. Okay, let me enlighten you, Anthony, Sleeping Warrior. So, back in 2015 through 2019, there was a misapprehension from our opponent's side that there was two different claims in play when talking about Earth curve geometry at the physical geometric limitation tangent point horizon in the Earth curve maths versus going up in elevation and seeing Earth curvature. Now, they were phrased differently. This will remind you. One, like Scientism, was specifically called Earth curve. That was raising in elevation to claim you see the curve of the Earth. The other was called the horizon, implied to be a physical geometric limitation sphere edge at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet as laid down in the Earth curve maths. They're both the same thing. Ergo, when debunking the horizon as a physical geometric limitation at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, that's Earth curve, their horizon, then it simultaneously debunks the exact same horizon at altitude as being Earth curve. Sorry, Simon Dan. Let's just address him 1 second, Anthony. We'll get back to you. Sorry, what was it you saw from 14,000 feet? Refraction? Is that what you saw? Because boats don't go over Earth curve anymore, Simon Dan, and haven't done since 2020. We debunked it with the Black Swan. Well, I think you'll find you specifically parroted off that devastating refraction rebuttal that annihilated your geometric Earth curve claim with its requirement for a tangent to the horizon. What was that? Refraction! The horizon's been refracted! Really? Well, it's not Earth curve then, is it? So you looking at the horizon from elevation is still the same Black Swan debunked horizon / Earth curve, no longer claimable as a limitation to your view / physically bending Earth curve horizon. It isn't. We debunked it. Go ahead, Anthony.
14,000 feet, guys. That's what he says.
I'll get about
Well,
10
that's
minutes
'cause he
into this
doesn't
show
know.
before... Sorry, go ahead, Brian.
Stop me
I just
saying,
say-
yeah.
Anthony's right that he's just trying to gaslight people and just try and bring in drongos and get them to be given money because because nobody saw ever. Just said to Anthony earlier. No, the only people that have supposedly ever seen Earth curve is them. No one else in the world has ever seen it. But even within his own model, it states that the horizon is always refracted. That means it was never, ever geometric, which means boats could never go over the horizon because there wasn't anything to go over. So who knows what's going on? But if that's the best the globe has at the moment, I don't know.
Okay, I'll wait about another 2 or 3 minutes, so we've got at least 10 minutes of a live show should it fail because I join Element again. But we are going to be covering a video today as well, which is going to be... I normally say I'm going into this blind, but it's Flatsoid's channel, so I did watch a part of this when it was live. I didn't necessarily watch at the mark that we're going to be covering. But I did listen to Phil Bell yesterday being defended by a load of white knights when he was getting annihilated by Flatsoid. It was extremely amusing. Up at the point that Craig, Fight the Flat Earth, who I now realise why I have very little interaction with the guy's just a liar. So when he starts declaring that gravity creates a force, really, contradictory to the George Musa quote to you personally, that gravity is not a force. Now, you can think of it as a force, Craig, but you'd be lying to say it creates one. Just a liar. That's why I don't interact with people like Craig. He's a liar. He's deceitful. Don't interact with those people. It's just going to bring you down to those sorts of levels. That's your world if you're associated or interacting with those kinds of people.
But you have to remember, though, that's his baby, right? Gravity's his baby in the same way that, I don't know, the Cavendish repeat that Blue Marble Science did, that's his baby. And they've all got their little slant on whatever it is topic that they specialize in, right? So for us to be laughing at gravity and whether or not it's a force or not, according to the current position, etc., that strikes at the heart of his whole existence because he needs gravity to be to be a force. He needs it to pull on matter. He needs there to be something that is pulling stuff together. Because if it doesn't, it means that every time he's ever said gravity is a force, obviously it makes him look like an absolute massive whopper. Because it isn't a force anymore. And Musa told him, but he can't accept it. That's why when Musa said it's not a force, but you can think of it as a force, Craig basically kind of like he pandered him and he pussyfooted around him, and he was trying to get him to say that it is a force, and he wasn't doing it. He can't accept that gravity is not a force. He needs it to be something like that acts on matter.
But don't they need it to be a force for all their orbits and things like that? So I don't
Yeah,
understand how can they supersede it when they still need it? I don't
Because they
understand
don't-
that.
Sorry,
I had a if
one
they
second.
don't have a gravity as a force, it means that the lights in the sky are back to being lights in the sky for them and nothing more. They don't want that. That means that it must be creation. Remember when Werner von Braun said on his tombstone, he said, like, for the heavens declare the glory of God and the firmament showeth his handiwork, or whatever it was that he said. Like, whatever he meant by that is like open to interpretation. But like, to me, the stars are like, that's the lattice work that holds the sky up for me, because it's like they all look the same distance to me. Well, if the stars are not orbiting stuff and planets are not orbiting stuff, we're back to, well, is that not the underside of the dome kind of argument? Are we arguing over what is that surface? Are we arguing over whether it's big, bluey, white, see-through, icy stuff?
No,
Because that's what it reduces to.
no, we're not. No, that's an assumption that you're making because you've debunked something. Not knowing what something is doesn't automatically mean you're going to figure out what it is. Just a quick shout out and correction to Godzilla 37.
Just to them, no.
Just one. Oh, I agree with you from that point of view. He says this one's free. Don't read it. No. You get a quote unquote free super chat because you're a member and your membership's renewed, which means you have had to pay for that super chat. So I absolutely will read it out because you have had to pay for it. As much as it might seem like a freebie, no, for your continued membership, you're getting 2 super chat, but it's definitely costing you money. I'll definitely read out those members chats when they give you a free, in quotes, super chat, because it isn't. But yeah, I'll definitely read it out. So I'll read it out. This one's free. Don't read it. Oh, why did I bother? Thank you for the super chat, Cortula.
Well, to put a disclaimer in, Flatsoid did say when he started his show, and Kiwi said, then you're leaving yourself open. You know, if you're saying something wrong, we're going to correct you. And Flatsoid said, I'm an open book. If I'm saying something wrong, then go ahead.
I'm going to do a quick check with Element to see if it's working. We may get 4 more minutes before my RAM craps out. You hear me in Element?
Yep,
Yeah.
can do.
Okay, as I said in the pre-show that never made it, because the computer failed, you won't get to hear the video as we cover it today, but just so you're aware. Okay, we're going to do one more housekeeping. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Negative.
Alrighty then. So we're going to be covering Flatsoid's video. So it's nice to be able to shout out a friendly, as much as I'm not exactly 100% sure what we're going to be covering because I've only seen it vaguely with subtitles while I was at a class today. So here goes the best chat share ever because it's for a friendly. Now, normally I'm making all sorts of disclaimers about how, helping this person in the algorithm is mainly so I can get that person to shout me out. But in this case, that's not true because Flatsoid's definitely a friend of the show and will mention me as much as any other friend of the show would, or mention us, I should say. So yeah, go and check out Flatsoid, and why not? Let him know. Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. If you haven't already subscribed to Flatsoid, and we mention him reasonably often, he's pretty proactive at the moment. He's building up his channel, so as you'd expect, he's out on the circuit a lot more than I am. I can tell you that much. So yeah, go and check him out. You'll enjoy the material. His sound has just improved significantly as he's got himself a nice new desk and a nice new microphone. So it's definitely a worthy share, and go and check him out. Go and subscribe now if you're watching live. Go immediately. What are you even doing here now? Just go and press on that button and go and push the subscribe button on Flatsoid. What are you even doing here? Anyway, once those people get back, we will cover this particular piece. So I'm hoping that people around me will lead me on what this is because I'm not 100% sure.
Make sure to leave one of them absolute bullshit comments on Flatside's video that you leave on all these other videos. Hey, great content, really liked it. One of them nonsense, vague, dishonest comments. And say,
Don't say dishonest.
1980
We covered this material, right? To go and leave a comment that said, let's make it really specific. Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, really enjoyed your content. Full stop. Okay. at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, I enjoyed your content, is, as you said, a lie. Not at all. We've covered their content, and the audience, as much as this isn't an education, isn't an entertainment channel, it's an education channel. There will be a certain aspect of keeping an audience entertained to educate them, and therefore responding to a video, wrong or right, is going to entertain the audience to a certain extent. So to say I enjoyed your video isn't a lie if they were to respond that, and it obviously serves my ends when they say at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, because there's a chance people will come and check out who was responding to their video, and hopefully put a link to mine. It's not a lie, definitely not.
Me and Brian will never, ever send those comments. Correct, Brian?
Yeah, I can't do that. I can't be forced.
Okay. Well, we'll get into this a little bit, and then, you know, as we're now in Element, I'm going to push the computer and see if I can stress it again while we're live. Hopefully I'll force it to crash. Now I've upped the voltage. But a quick shout out to Joke Man. Wow, $50. Thank you very much. £50. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Just released my first video. Woohoo! Musing and music. They say I'm crazy. I'm a catalyst. Well, go and check him out. I'm pretty sure you can actually link to Joke Man and check out his latest video by clicking on him. So, yeah, go and check out his video. We might do that as well. So, thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Please go and check out Joke Man and his latest video by clicking on the button or his face on that super chat. And, yeah, subscribe to him too. Check out his video, give it a like, give him a comment, help him algorithmically, all that good stuff. Really appreciate the support. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Okie dokie. So this is... should we just do this? Should we just respond to whatever Flatsoid's got to say?
The universe is the closed system.
Isolated.
The Earth is not a...
Wow, we've not got far into this video. The universe is a closed system. Okay. I mean, when he talks about the universe, there's going to be a difference in how they're approaching what they're talking about, isn't there? So the universe for Flatsoid in this instance is going to be just what we see in the heavens, which we say is the stars, right? That's going to incorporate our universe, which could also simultaneously just be described as the world, right? That's our universe. Now, for the other guy, when he says universe is a closed system, he's talking about an ever-expanding sky vacuum expanding into nothing. That's a closed system, I assume. This is a globe we're talking about, right? I'm not just slagging off a flat earth that's just wrong, right?
Yeah, it's a globe that came in on Flatsoids. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, see, this is a bit of a topic essay when I listened to some of this after the show. Myself, Adam, Neil, and QE. I think Chris Farton was there too, but it was like, what is their claim? Well, if you look at their claim, they're trying to claim that their universe is expanding into itself. That is their claim. You can see a whole video on that by Sabine Hossenfelder, where she makes that claim within, and she goes through the process of thought you'd have to go through, I don't know, to say that. So could that be described as an isolated or a closed system? Which one could it be described as? Because isolated system, see, Kiwi was saying that like the first thing we jumped on was the isolated system. Flatsoid said as isolated system, but isolated systems are only used as a descriptor in thermodynamics. There's no such thing in reality. Now,
Correct.
We are talking about the heliocentric model, so we're talking about non-reality. So could we describe their universe expanding into itself as a closed, open, or isolated system? What would you describe that as?
Well, that was going to be my critique of Flatsoid, so you've already covered it, but I'll just reiterate it, which is to say that isolated systems is a descriptive term within the law. Laws are just descriptions of things that occur always, and to simplify them for an audience, you have to use terms like isolated or ideal. Those sorts of terms don't really exist. Open and closed do, but when Flatsoid said that his, I assume, universe without context in a globe paradigm that he's responding to by rebuttal is isolated, still doesn't make sense because there aren't any.
I would object to using systems at all in that description, because intermixing thermodynamics with the globe delusion is not helpful.
Yeah, technically, the laws of thermodynamics don't apply to that model.
Yeah, that's true. So Brian's pointing out something that fundamentally doesn't jive with any description that this globe believer will give if he's describing a heliocentric model, because the second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply. So if you're going to describe any sort of gas behavior and how gas expands or how matter expands in the question, right? He's talking about how, as an isolated system with an objection from Brian, you would have the world expanding into nothing. But if the nothing doesn't exist, it's like in Never-Ending Story. What's it expanding into? But they have it expanding, and there's nothing beyond what it's expanding into. Therefore, as Brian describes it, it's expanding into itself, which makes no sense at all, but doesn't sit in line with any entropic law. Now, when we say doesn't sit in line with it, well, it doesn't have to, because it doesn't apply. So when you're talking about globe Earth with a pressure of gas that you're breathing not expanding into the sky vacuum, fundamentally that defies the second law of thermodynamics. We say it often enough, but that is literally the case, and they'll admit it. You know, it's not applicable in their quote-unquote model that we never see.
Yeah, even Rumpus said it. Sorry, hey, Chocolate. Even Rumpus said it. The second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply to the Earth. And he was talking about the globe Earth, heliocentric Earth, heliocentric globe Earth. Because it doesn't, it can't. Not with what they're claiming. And if the second law can't apply, none of the rest, the first and third law can't apply. They don't apply anyway. Because the first law, one second, the first law points out that nature cannot create matter and energy, but they're claiming matter and energy was created by nature. So that's first and second law. Third law as well, so on. So I don't know, they can't claim anything to do with thermodynamics. Sorry.
So that means that they don't need containment.
No, that what it means is by allowing them to claim either a closed, isolated, or open system, you're allowing them to convolute the laws of thermodynamics with their model so they can claim its reality. It's greasing the skids.
Precisely. Quick shout out to Joe Kerman. He says, I'm called Joe Kerman. I'm a Sigma male. In 2007, I decided I had to save the world. I'm ready. Thank you very much for the super chat, Joe Kerman. My bad. We listen to a bit more?
Yes, please.
A closed system, and gravity keeps the atmosphere at...
Atmo what now? So he's already begging the question that Earth's a sphere and that the gas takes the shape of a sphere around the sphere Earth. Atmosphere. That's atmo, air, arbitrarily sphere-shaped. When air, that's gas. Gases, a mixture thereof, take the shape of their container. They don't arbitrarily form sphere shapes. Go on, whoever it is.
And what's gravity again?
I was going to say, the moment he says gravity keeps, no matter what, if anybody says gravity and then it's followed by a word that describes an action of some kind, in other words, a verb, then they don't know what gravity is. Because gravity is actually an optical illusion according to the current position. It's not an action. It's not a force. It doesn't create a force. It's an optical illusion.
That's why I tried to ask them to define gravity. If you listen, it gets into it. They start attacking gravity. But I felt they should have had them define gravity and then explain to them that it's outdated anyway.
You've got to know all these different methods, and they'll incorporate them as an attack with white knights coming from all angles. So in the case of Flat Sword yesterday, he did exceptionally well until there was lots of distraction techniques running from white knights, asking him various different questions and demanding answers, at the point that they do-si-doed and begged the question. So at the point that Phil brings out a picture of a black bit next to a blue bit next to a curved Earth and says, well, why isn't the sky filling the sky vacuum? By that point, Flatsoid had, like I say, 3 or 4 white knights, including Craig himself, stepping in or stepping all over him and precluding him from recognising that they've just gone back to begging the question again. I assume we have gas pressure. I assume it's not filling a sky vacuum. And now I'm going to ask you by burden of proof reversal how it's not the case that the sky vacuum's not being filled by my assumption of sphere-shaped air. So just begging the question again.
The answer to that question that you asked, why isn't the sky filling it? It's because the model is wrong and that isn't representing real world. That's
wrong
not
answer.
Where we live.
No, that's incorrect, Anthony. So the answer would have been, it would. If the sky was a vacuum, so if he's begging the question, which at that point's been accepted by Flatsoid because he hasn't recognised that the White Knights have pulled him off his game, was to say it would. The law of thermodynamics being described and fought for by Flatsoid yesterday with Phil Bell was one at that point. But the moment he put the picture up and said, why isn't it filling my begging the question assumption of a sky vacuum in violation of the second law of thermodynamics? Why isn't it filling it? The answer is it would. If that black area was a 10 to the minus 17 torr sky vacuum, the gas would fill the space. It isn't because, according to you, it isn't filling that area of volume, meaning it either isn't an area of volume or it isn't 10 to the minus 17 torr because we'd have no gas to breathe. Because it would fill the area. Flatsoid just didn't say that, and neither of you. So when he's asking, why isn't the gas filling the black area, it's on his assumption the black area is a bloody vacuum. So he's just begged the question successfully. That was Phil Bell yesterday. Different show, by the way.
I'd claim that was a debunk. No, that debunks their model, because if the sky was a vacuum the way you describe and the gas pressure does press out, that obviously means that your model is incorrect. Can't do it.
Shout out to Godzilla37. It says, Joker man to the left of me. Jokers to the right. Here I am, saving the world again. Dum 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 dum.
Well, I don't know if I would give them a model. You don't have to debunk delusion either. So I don't know if I would go that route, Anthony.
You know who could have used the White Knight yesterday? From what I heard,
Bill, he had
grid.
plenty.
No, the grid.
The grid.
I've never heard a Glober throw out the grid as many times as Craig did yesterday.
I don't know what that means. Throw out the grid. What does that mean?
It means it's irrelevant. He did not want to speak about it. He said we don't need to speak about the grid.
What's
the grid?
That's kind of.
Hold on, everyone else. I'm talking to Chocolate. What's the grid?
What we call latitude longitude grid, or Cartesian coordinate system.
Oh,
he didn't want to talk.
He didn't want to. I didn't catch that bit. I was listening.
Oh my god, he threw it out. It's completely under the bus. He refused.
Hold on. I'm confused.
By the time I turned it on.
Let me get this straight. You mean the grid they wrap around a globe? That grid?
Yeah. The one they used to say proves the globe.
Right, it's wrapped around it.
Completely irrelevant.
He thinks the grid wrapped around a globe is irrelevant. How the fuck do you navigate then, Craig?
Yes.
How do you navigate a globe if you haven't got that grid that came from a flat Earth elevation angle measurement to a star? How do you navigate without it? It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant if you live on a globe because we don't. That's the bottom line here.
Exactly. And I've never heard it thrown into the bus so many times as he did yesterday. It was hilarious. I sat there and listened to it like, wait a minute. This is the same grid that these guys used to tell us all the time that proves the globe. Now, to listen to this guy, it's completely irrelevant, doesn't want to speak about it. It was hilarious.
Pushing that one step further, then, if he's throwing the grid under the bus, that also means the argument of when they say, show us your flat Earth map, and I always say all maps are flat, they all then say, well, that's a projection, isn't it? It's a projection of a sphere on a flat plane. Well, if he now doesn't want to talk about that, well, how does that work with that argument of that's a projection of a sphere on a flat plane?
It proves we're on a flat plane, Anthony. That's how that argument works, and precisely why he doesn't want to talk about it. And it's very telling. When anybody doesn't want to talk about things, you should labour those points. For example, shh, don't mention 90. Quick shout out to Jokerman again. He says, I have 4 inventions, and I want to get my band back together. What's a sigma? Anybody know what a sigma is? What's a sigma male?
It's like a step. No, it's like a different. I don't know how to describe it. It's like a step.
Well, then don't.
Above. Some people would
Can somebody who does know tell me rather than Chocolate?
Doesn't really care. Steps inside the norm, does his own thing. That's the sigma male.
Like men going your own way.
Really, not trying to be something, just being what other people are trying to be. That kind of thing.
Anyway, I was just going to say he has to throw out the grid, Chocolate, because the grid proves we're on a flat Earth.
No,
that's what his globe's got wrapped around it.
What Nathan just said is what I even typed in the chat when I heard it. When a Glober is telling you we don't have to talk about something, it's irrelevant to talk about something, be sure that they absolutely need to talk about it. They just can't. That's why they'll tell you that.
Right.
I think the Sigma male's the one that's like, you know, like alpha males, the leader of the pack, and the delta male and the Zulu male. They're all terms that are in this hierarchy, this concept. I think the Sigma male's the guy that just says, fuck the concept. I'm not playing by these rules. I'm just being me. He's the one that steps out of the whole the construct that is that labeling and just says, oh, I'm not any of them.
Cool.
Hold on. This sounds self-defeating. You're saying if you're going to categorize men as alpha, beta, gamma, you step outside that categorization system, and in so doing, you get categorized as sigma. That's self-defeating.
I think that's what it is. Yeah, I think so. It's like being an alpha male, but not giving yourself that title. You're just saying I'm above all of you, fuckies.
But most
Nothing
alpha males
in the
don't.
Urban Dictionary.
Go on, let's hear it from
but
the Urban
difference
Dictionary.
is a Sigma male wouldn't give
It's not
themselves a
there.
title. That's the difference. Like an alpha male needs to be like in the front, in the foreground. You know, just the one up. You know, the Sigma male doesn't care about none of that. He's the dude chilling in the back, just scoping everything out. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good one. Cool Hand Luke.
What's the one of the?
Why are we talking about that again?
One of the super chatters said, you know, I found out in 2007 and specifically designated himself as a Sigma. Shout out to Bobby Zines, says Joker Man. He covers a lot of UK stuff. He did my editing. All right, Bobby Zines. Brilliant. Yeah, excellent. Another friend of the show.
Is that why Sigma Ontantis is called Sigma? Is because it doesn't fall in line with the illusions about
you can't
reality.
even see it. You can't even see
not
it. So
rumpus, John's
a star when he's not really a star.
John, they completely ruined your reification joke.
It's all right. We'll move on.
Anyway, look back to that gravity claim. Gravity at present in mainstream pseudoscience is an effect, not a cause. What this guy claimed concerning the gas being kept to the surface of the sphere Earth is claiming a force of attraction between masses, which is gravity as a force. That is debunked by the fact that objects weigh more in a vacuum. Debunks that claim. That's the end of that.
Because that would mean that if you're exiting all of the medium from the vacuum, you will be removing gravity, right? Because if you're you'd be
removing
gravity.
Well, you're removing the air that they're claiming is a mass that is being attracted to the greater mass of a globe Earth, to the surface of a greater mass of a globe Earth. So if you're removing that mass, then the object has to weigh less in a vacuum. But objects weigh more in a vacuum. So it debunks the claim that gravity is a force. Debunks the heliocentric model. But not one of them will address it.
Can I ask a favour of some of the mods in chat? Just 1 second, Anthony. Can I ask a favour of one of the mods in chat? Can you see if you can dig out Joker Man's video? And we'll play it towards the end of the show.
Or I will call it.
Okay, can I quickly correct you? The universe is the isolated system. Earth is considered to be a closed system even in your globe rhetoric. You do know that, correct?
By whom?
So, I'm a bit confused again. Flatsoid's telling this guy that in the globe Earth rhetoric it's a closed system. Why is he telling him that?
No, I don't know why you're saying that.
I think he was saying the universe is closed.
He's doing that because the guy's wrongly cited his own model, and Flatsoid's correcting him and saying it's actually considered to be an isolated system in your model. He's correcting him because he doesn't know his own model. That's what's happening here.
But no, I still think it's greasing the skids, and he's allowing him to grease them by even introducing the ideas of closed and open systems to the heliocentric delusion.
Well, in Flatsoid's defense, in his defense, he's trying to amalgamate the laws of thermodynamics with the heliocentric model also. And fair enough, he's doing it incorrectly, because they can't be. You know, how can you have an argument about thermodynamics with a glober when those things do not apply to their model? They apply to reality, but not to the globe. So, I mean, no matter what you choose, open, closed, isolated, it's wrong because none of them apply to it.
Fly on.
We can must have showed up on screen.
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's first get second law. The second law of thermodynamics is a physical law based on universal experience and conceding heat and energy conservations. In simple terms, state of entropy of the entire universe is an isolated system. So there, you've already shown yourself ignorant there. Okay.
What?
Now, you said
How?
you said the universe is a closed system. It's not. It's an isolated system. So you're wrong there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. You want the semantics? Okay.
No, you specifically said it's a
That's
closed.
That's called sourcing.
Yeah.
That's not semantics. It's
Yeah,
two different
semantics.
that's
The
two different
meaning of
meanings.
words is quite important. I think
Yeah.
we'll all agree.
Yeah,
The meaning of words is important. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that was two different meanings. Isolated.
Semantics. Okay. Yeah, you got me there.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Here we say Earth is a closed system because only energy is naturally transferred outside to the atmosphere. Study.com. So your Earth is considered a closed system. So that you know what a closed system is in thermodynamics.
But that's incorrect.
I agree. Earth is actually considered open because you have astronauts and everything leaving the Earth's boundary.
Okay, then we agree. Then why do you show me this?
Because if the Earth is an open system, the air we breathe, because...
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just one thing. What they do is you end up talking to them about the model, and you can end up saying the Earth this, the Earth that, when what Flatside's actually saying is the globe Earth heliocentric model states this, not reality. So you can end up using the term the Earth, and it's all because you're in their paradigm, and you're putting yourself from an imagination point of view on the surface of a globe Earth. Whereas what Flatside's actually saying is what he's actually talking about or referring to is a heliocentric globe Earth, not reality, not the Earth we know.
Yeah,
things separate from that.
You are correct, and I agree with your critique. I would have given it. Also, on the other hand, knowing Flatsoid and watching him hone his craft, if that's the right terminology, he's getting better. And yes, you end up with a string of disclaimers when categorizing how they, incorrectly or correctly, summarize their own position. And when you put it back to them, as Flatsoid's just done, you as a flat earther have to be mindful that there's an audience. And for the opponent, they might understand the context of what Flatsoid's saying in this scenario, but the audience just hears Flatsoid describing how the world is. And it's not that way. Hold on. It's actually, as Brian's just said, a model description of how a glober thinks the world is, being detailed by Flatsoid with the term how the world is, or however he phrased it. Go ahead, Neil.
No, I'm just saying the indictment is not really so much on Flatsoid. It's on Alwyn, which you'll soon hear.
Really? You want to expand on that? I was waiting for you to expand on that, but okay.
Because of
when you play a video.
Second law of thermodynamics, aka entropic law, the gas we breathe would fill the available system space.
With an immense force.
With one exception.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a force pulling it down.
There's no force.
Well, hold on. Let me get into this. I'm an expert. So what force would that be? The force of gravity, right? I take it you think of it as a force. Well, don't you know that the force of gravity, whatever that might be, right, is considered or used to be considered as one of the weakest forces in the universe? Is it not speculated widely in media, right? So how is that weak force going to countermand the extreme force of gas pressure trying to fill the available volume, right? Which is considered like among the strongest forces. Like nothing can stop it. It's that strong. How is gravity as a considered weak force, if it even is a force, how is it going to stop that from happening?
Define gravity.
It only reaches out 300, 400 kilometers, not millions of kilometers. It only...
No, he asked you.
Gravity only
so thanks for proving my case.
our
How is it going to
atmosphere
stop it?
down to
Nathan,
Earth
could you stop the video?
300, 400 kilometers.
Okay.
After that, it will escape.
Okay.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, this is the thing that QE was jumping on yesterday, and we all jumped on it. That what's after happening here is, and the critique is on Arwen, is that although Arwen's just kind of being blasé about it, I understand, but what's after happening is that guy is not after defining what gravity he's claiming. He's not after defining. He just said gravity and made the. It gave people the impression that he was talking about a force of gravity, but he hadn't stated that, which is something they keep on trying to do because they want to chop and change between different gravities, from different timelines, which is what they want to do.
I see something even worse than that. Sorry, Nathan. I see something even worse than Flat's always about to point him to it isn't a force, and I would wanted to give him the. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you carry on.
Just 1 second.
He said he wasn't finished.
I know, but I want you to carry on to get to the end of your point. Then Brian will pick up where he's left off.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Brian.
So, but Arwen gave him the force, and it just kind of played on something that isn't even considered anything now.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. I was just trying to do it the right way, not to hammer Arwen too bad.
Hold on,
but
I'm confused. Sorry, Brian. Just stop again. I'm really sorry to interrupt you. Arwen's not done anything wrong so far. He's been quite specific with his words, and he's leading. I can tell what he's doing. The opponent, because he's saying, in your paradigm, and then he's used the words. I think the words he used were something like, "is considered to be the weakest force," or was. I think he was even more Weasley. He said was considered to be. So I don't see anything wrong with what I think Arwen's actually being more clever than you might recognise. I could be wrong, but maybe you're missing. Maybe you know something that I don't.
Yeah,
I might have missed the was part.
Hold on, just 1 second. The book FN. Go ahead, Brian. Then the book FN.
Yeah, what was just said from Discord is the thing. Arwen is after giving this guy the claim he doesn't have. The guy doesn't have to claim it now. So later on, if anyone tries to stick the guy with a force of gravity, he could say, "Well, I didn't claim it was a force," because Arwen's after bringing that in. So, and then your man went on to talk about something 300 and 400 kilometers above the Earth, happening. It's like, so the man's gone off of the force.
That's not correct.
He's
that's not correct.
Away with bringing in a force.
I'm sorry,
of
I've got to stop
gravity,
you. I'm really sorry, Brian. Stop. No, that's not correct. He opened with, "unless there's a force." So that's not true. He was very much up for begging the question of a force. He said it explicitly. Said it.
Yeah, but he didn't claim gravity was that force. That's
come on.
Okay, but you don't want to be in trouble with QE.
I know Arwen really well. I know where he's going, and so far, all I can hear is Arwen's getting ahead of the game here, and it seems like you're being critical of someone who's leading the opponent where he wants him to go. And is Arwen here?
Yeah, he also.
How about you start with defining it first?
Hold on, Brian.
With Brian.
You're going to get a lot of people. Hold on, everyone stop. Everyone stop. Everyone stop. You're going to get a lot of people offering their opinions over the top of you, Brian, but you're going to be the primary person talking. But go ahead, Neil, then The Rock, then we're back to Brian. Go ahead, Neil.
I was saying, how about let's start with a definition of gravity? Why don't you define it first?
Always.
Okay, go ahead, the book.
Yeah, no, I said I guess I probably missed the was part. I mean, and I thought he did said gravity is force or something like that, and that's when Arwen.
Yeah, you got to listen closely. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, Arwen. All right, your man didn't state that gravity was a force. He said with a force. He included that if there was a force, this and that could happen. He didn't claim gravity was a force.
No, I got that.
Hang on. He did claim gravity earlier, but he didn't claim what it was. He didn't define it. And now Arwen is also speaking about entropy as a force. Entropy is not one of the fundamental forces. The effects of entropy.
Okay, well, I'm willing to see where this is going, but I don't know. From what I've heard so far,
I understand Arwen's argument. I understand Arwen's argument, but go on.
Well, we'll see where it's going.
Okay, Gag, what happens if you take a fish tank and pour sulfur hexane?
No, we're listening to the Glober, but would you not say, say this often at the moment. We'd be remiss if we didn't critique Arwin and Flatsoid as well.
Well, I think so, because he's pissed off. So I don't think it's a fair appraisal. As you can see, he goes into. I don't know. You supporting him there on this approach?
Me? I am
you sound like
preemptively assuming.
You've not
I'm not supporting him yet. I'm saying, well, let's see where it's going. But I'm saying preemptively, this sounds like Arwin leading the opponent. And preemptively, you're saying, no, he's just giving him the force of gravity. But he didn't, because he left in enough disclaimery Weasley words for me to say, no, he hasn't done that yet. Maybe the guy will take that from him, like Brian's saying, which I can't disagree with. We'll just play a bit more, Adam. We'll see. I'm not signing with anyone yet. But I'm not going to, because... Go on.
The bit I've heard, what made me giggle is, why is Arwen giving him the fourth of three fundamental forces? Why has that not been the first point of discontent? Why are we trying to agree?
He didn't.
No, he said it's a tiny, weeny weak for us, even in your model, right? So, to me, you've got to define what this gravity is. I think you hear Neil chirping and then storm off. You've got to define what this thing is before you let the conversation go any further, especially if you're the one that's going to introduce gravity as a fourth of three fundamental forces.
I think we might have to rewind just a bit, Nathan.
No, we don't. Look, so far, Arwin has done nothing wrong, as far as I can tell. Now, other people have heard this already. I haven't. Let's just do a couple of quick shout-outs, though. So, shout-out to Rinsler. Burden of proof is puzzling. Shouldn't both sides be well-versed with what the other would say? Oh, I'm going to have to scroll back down. Just one sec. Shouldn't both sides be well-versed in what the other would say? Critical thinking-wise, knowing the other side's arguments, essentially. Well, that's not an expectation or a standard, Rinsler, unfortunately. That's what you do if you're a good debater. And Arwin is, and knows the other side's argument like the back of his hand. Perhaps he's trying to move the argument on where the opponent doesn't know, but it seems like Brian's suggesting that he does know. He just needs Arwin to beg that question for him so he can use it to his advantage later without having to explicitly say that gravity's a force when it isn't. So maybe the guy's being Weasley and is using a drunk Arwin, but I just hear the weasel words of Arwin and go, okay, yeah, it was considered back in the day as a weak force in their paradigm. That's what he said so far. Now, maybe that's been done to move the conversation along because someone's not willing to say that, knowing damn well where it would go because it isn't a bloody force. And Arwin's like, okay, I'm willing to do that with enough Weasley disclaimers so I won't get it pulled apart, or I could defend if it was at a later date. I'm surprised he's not here. Also, another shout out to Jokerman. My favourite band is For Today. I presume that's the name of the band as it's in capitals. For Today. But they need cowbell. Okay. I'm the territory drummer. Is that what you say? Territory drummer? Have I said that correctly? Probably not. My musical terminology is not great. Okay, thank you for the super chat. That didn't make much sense to me, Jokerman, but really appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. Has there been another super chat just come through? Just a couple more super chats, guys. I'm really sorry. Shout out to Matthew Eastman, who says, what we have here... Let's do it in the Axl Rose. What we have here is a failure to communicate. Indeed.
Very, very good.
Goldie.
I heard the term model. I've heard the term model mentioned several times, and a model is a physical extrapolation based on measurement. So I would like anybody, to either show the measurements the model is based on or the model at this point.
Yeah, we debunked that. You can't. We debunked it. It's a geometric assertion. If there were a model to be asserted, it would be the geometric assertion of a radius 3959 mile sphere. That assertion, and that is the assertion, that's the fundamental claim, has been debunked. It was debunked in 2020. We debunked the geometry. So there isn't one. Good morning from Flat Florida, says Goldie. Thank you for the support, Goldie. You're a ace.
What was the measurements based on then?
They weren't.
For them to come up with this?
They were. Well, they were. They were based on a flat plane angle measurement. I mean, when you say what were the measurements of a sphere based on, you didn't. just the measurements were of a flat Earth. You twisted them into a sphere, but there was no globe measurements. There can't be. There isn't a sphere beneath our feet. There's a flat plane. So that was what was measured.
Well, that's all I wanted to bring it back to. Thank you. That's the model they're talking about.
Play on.
A flow right into it, and you leave the container open, what happens to the gas?
I have no idea.
It disperses into the surrounding system, therefore debunking gravity pulling it down. Thank you.
No.
Yeah. No. You just said you had no idea.
It mixes up and expands within the available volume. That's what happens, right?
Hold on, this guy's claiming gravity, though.
It's not that difficult, guys. I'm really don't understand why
You're not helping, Neil.
It's not difficult. You have mass.
Sounds difficult.
Gas has mass, right?
Yeah,
Do you agree?
but wait. But you
Okay, then when you have a force large enough to pull it down, it will stay there.
Good.
So there, I want to give shout outs to Neil. Neil was trying to get that back on to track. He was shouted down, told he wasn't helping. If you listen to that, what's he trying to do? Get a definition of gravity.
Well, in the interest
all we're about to go into now is more superfluous bollocks led by this guy, which he'll just move from one thing to the other as he's challenged. Neil's doing a good thing there. What's gravity? That's a great starting point to continue this debate on from.
Well,
but until you've got that from him, you're going to struggle.
Well, there is a point we can all take on board. In the interest of balance, Neil, can you just shut up next time?
That's the only time I thought it was unjustified. I thought it was a really good point he's making. He gets told to shut up. When in actual fact, it's the most pertinent point and the thing that should be dealt with at this point in the debate.
Yeah, I agree, because the guy now is about to be bringing in, he's just stated that the air has mass, you have mass, and said and got people to kind of tacitly agree to that. So he's moving it further and further into the paradigm that he wants. And Neil was right. The guy happened to find anything, and he should have been, Neil should have been listened to by Arwen now.
Is everybody
Especially
okay?
after giving them that gravity is the weakest of the forces. Then you're gonna tell Neil it's not helping. I have to agree with Adam on this one. Love you, Arwen.
It's always important to define terms when you're debating someone.
Always.
The most important thing you can do.
Also, in the interest of balance, Arwen was right. You're all idiots.
I was trying to get them back to realize that it's not a force. It was superseded, and it's now a bending of a concept. But what are you going to do?
Even if
entropy
says it has to expand.
Wait,
gas doesn't allow itself to be pulled. If you apply force to a container, guess what's going to happen to that gas? It's not going to be pulled down, right? It's going to go into opposition because it's less dense than the rest of what's in that container that is moving, accelerating. So it's going to just redivide itself. It's not getting pulled. Their gravity doesn't exist. It's density.
Okay, can I ask Gag? Can I ask you, Gag? You know what gas is? The gas behavior.
I know what gas is.
Okay, so you would understand it's unbonded, and it moves around in all directions constantly, and it has what we call elastic collisions. Do you understand what that means?
Nathan?
Elastic collisions.
Yeah.
Please elaborate.
Nathan?
Yes, go ahead.
Before we move on to that, but I understand why Arwen said you're not helping. It's because they wanted to destroy the paradigm of the force holding the gases. So yeah, Arwen was actually correct. He wasn't helping because then he would have defined, and they would have started going into the definition of that it's not a force, it's currently this. They wouldn't destroy the paradigm that they had with, gases are held by that force.
Okay.
Yeah, but the problem I'd have with that is that it's a paradigm Arwen went into, and Arwen stating that a gas that can't be pulled down by a force of gravity will allow the guy to beg the question that that's how he's going to switch that into some other nonsense, as opposed to just nip it at the bud and point out that objects weigh more in a vacuum. That debunks that claim outright, that gravity is existing as a force and pulls gases down. Because in their model, because the man just stated that that the gases and air has mass. That means he's giving them weight, which would be a downward vector, and that's like if I just jumped in there and then that's what I would jump on.
Then he would have to define mass.
Slightly different direction. Yeah, he'd have to be defining that. Yeah.
The thing is, we're not really arguing about how well Arwen did. We're arguing about a rate limiting step to get this over with quicker, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. They're just so we don't have to be too hard on them.
Some people like to play with their food, we know.
Won't lose any energy with collisions.
So is it telling us that we're wrong and they don't know what he's talking about?
Yeah. Gas can only change direction with a collision. The only way to change direction is with a collision. The mere fact we have gas pressure means it's collided to change its direction.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah. Can you show me any gas in existence that does not come in containment?
Sure.
Okay.
What do you breathe right now?
That's contained.
Nitrogen, oxygen, argon. They're all
okay.
And they're all gases. And what happens?
Does it have?
So yeah, that's presumably where Flatsoid fell victim to the burden of proof reversal fallacy and begging the question fallacy. Because what's occurring now, Flatsoid's being challenged to explain something when the claim is that the sky is a vacuum. That's the overriding claim that needs to be defended. Now, when he's asked about how he's breathing gas, that's the opponent's way of saying, if I assume that the sky is a vacuum, then how is it that we've got gas pressure gradients, or, you know, how are you breathing at all? Because I'm going to assume my paradigm with a sky vacuum and gas pressure, with you breathing it, for me to then reverse the burden and ask you questions about that system. So at that point, that should have been where Flatsoid said, sorry, you're going to suggest that the gas I'm breathing is containerless. In order to achieve the gas pressure, you're going to ask me about the containerless system you assume it is. That's a begging the question fallacy.
No, we're going to get into lung function now.
Should have said I'm breathing the proof that we have containment.
Perfect. Everyone else shut up. Everyone else shut up. Just Chocolate, can you repeat that again, please? Exactly.
I would have said, well, I'm breathing the proof of containment. Because if there wasn't, I wouldn't be breathing.
Exactly. The response exactly. The response from Flatsoid should have been, oh, right, you're going to ask me about how I'm breathing. That's my proof we have containment. And if he says, no, it isn't, show me gas pressure without containment. Oh, well, look up at the sky. Or how are you breathing? No, that's assuming that we have a containerless system not expanding into a sky vacuum. That's not only not proof of non-containered systems, it's a second law of thermodynamics violation. Entropy. Gas would fill the sky vacuum in his begging the question assumption. How are you breathing? How dare you? That proves my point, not yours.
Why don't you just tell him to catch his fart in his hand and bring it to somebody and then open his hand up and see if it's still there?
A physical...
Quick shout out to Jokerman. I studied forensic chemistry at uni. You also said something about getting tattoos. What was that about? He says, God speaks to me. I'm getting what he says as tattoos, says Jokerman. I mean, I wouldn't advise it, but I'm not a tattoo person. But fair enough. Also, as I say, I studied forensic chemistry at university, says Jokerman. Good stuff. Thank you for the super chats. Really appreciate the support. Go on.
Can I just point out that you can fart into a cupped hand and pass it on to
I don't need to know this. Look, when I use farts in my examples, it's endearing. When you do it, it's just northern and disgusting.
No, but he used the fart example, right? And it's not a container, but you can actually cup a fart, and it only lasts for a couple of seconds, but you can do it.
Your hand's a container. Ugh.
Right, make your point again.
Play on.
My point is that they reverse the burden. He's been asked how he's breathing. The response from Flatsoid is, what, proving that we've got containment? Because it's a necessary requirement to be having gas pressure. It's got to have something to press on. So asking me how I'm breathing proves my point, not yours. When he turns around and says, no, I assume we've got gas pressure and a vacuum. An overt begging the question fallacy.
Would it be easier?
Go on. John?
Would it be easier to understand if you just said, when he said, well, how are you breathing? Well, because the sky is an expanse for gas to fill.
That's the answer. Perfect, John. You got there better than I did. Thank you, God. Thank you, your ear. Exactly. How am I breathing? Because the sky... I just want to repeat his statement. John's statement was the best so far. Sorry, whoever came in second. John's statement's perfect. How am I breathing? Because the sky is not a vacuum. If the sky was a vacuum, the gas I'm breathing would fill that space. Entropy law, second law of thermodynamics. Exactly, John.
Well, what your man asked was, what are you breathing now? And the answer to that would be something that I couldn't be breathing in your model.
Pressurized gas, meaning it's at pressure in containment.
Yes. It's in the same system.
No,
but then yes, it does.
Doesn't.
Yes, it does.
No,
how do you breathe? Do you know
there
how you...
is no physical containment around the Earth.
Okay. Yes, there is. Now, do you know how your lungs work?
Show me. That was a claim.
Okay.
Show me.
Gaig,
show me the physical containment.
He's literally taking his own head off.
It's a natural antecedent for gas pressure to exist.
Gaig,
Can I show you in?
Do you know, Gaig? Do you know how your lungs work?
Yeah, in a certain amount, not.
Do you understand your lungs create a low pressure environment with physical boundaries, and the air around it fills that space?
Yes.
That's exactly how it is with Earth. If you did not have a physical boundary around Earth, the air would fill the available space because it's a separate system. You said you understand thermodynamics.
Not because it's a separate system, because containment's required.
Earth is an open system, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that objection from the beginning again. Earth is an open system, correct? No. Just be careful with your phraseology, Flatsoid. You would infer the globe Earth is an open system, correct? As opposed to Earth is an open system. It's just refinement on his argument, though, and contextually his opponent knows what Flatsoid's saying because he's putting it to a globe believer. Oh my God. Capitals from D-Rose. Everyone brace yourself. It's going to be done in shouties. Even as a... No, I won't. Even as Moomin Rider said, far under covers, the container stay under covers and suffer, then remove the covers, the container, and breathe fresher air. Yeah, I'll buy that. Yeah, why not? Thank you for the super chat, D-Rose. It's my own fault. I bought it on myself with Flats as an example.
Asking Flatsoid to demonstrate the container we must exist within is kind of a burden of proof reversal, in that he doesn't need to do that. All he needs to do is demonstrate that gas fills available volume.
I just heard him snatching his own head off. Sorry, Adam. Go ahead, bro.
I was saying, this is a bit I saw yesterday. Me and QE were kind of disagreeing a little bit in terms of approach. To me, this is something that was missed at the beginning. Define gas behavior. Define what gases do. This guy's still under the illusion that gas go down, go boom, boom. That it is subject to a downward bias. That needs dealing with before and accepting before we can get in to the next point. We've got to get him to say that no, gas behavior is as Flatfoot's trying to reiterate and get agreement on. Gas behavior is one vector based solely on the last collision. It doesn't change its path. It's a straight line vector until another collision occurs. There is no secondary force affecting its vector.
And that's exactly what Flatsoid tried to do, except that right after he did that, what did this guy ask him? Well, what are you breathing? Right? Not even acknowledging the gas behavior that Flatsoid had just described to him.
A couple of quick
Right?
shout
Because
outs.
he said to him,
Unitox Femu says, Earth is an open system with a small vacuum around it. Yeah, right, whatever. Thank you for the super chat, Unitox Femu. Really appreciate the support. See if I can just actually bring it up. Was there another one? No. Thank you very much, Sasha. Really appreciate it.
Are you finished, Chocolate? Do you want to say on?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Whoever it was making that point.
that was me, but I'm pretty much finished. Basically, I was just saying that Flatsoid described gas behavior to the guy, and his response was, "What are you breathing?" Right?
Yeah.
Answer: pressurized gas. John's had the best answer to date, which is, I'm breathing pressurized gas, proving that the sky's not a vacuum. Shout out to Rinsler. We can't afford to lose you, Nathan. Either clone yourself or write a book, please, of all of your knowledge. Now, it's interesting you should say that, as I have actually spent quite a prolonged period with the assistance of 10th Man and somebody who can use a pen to write a book. So that's something that is in the pipeline, actually, which by coincidence. Not that I was intending to shout that out, as it's not done yet, but there we go.
Does that imply that you can't use a pen, Nathan?
Yeah, but pretty much. I don't mind being self-deprecating in that regard.
If you can get someone else to do the writing for him, you know, Nathan.
Yes, I am fundamentally lazy. That's correct. Adam knows the score. I'm basically
I didn't
lazy.
go that far. I didn't feel the indictment was needed just to explain what was required to make you happy.
We all know Nathan's lazy, and if somebody else could do the work, he'll allow it. No problem.
Sorry, now, there's two things I must point out. Nathan cut off Chocolate when he brought in the super chat. He didn't leave a Chocolate chance to finish. That was kind of rude, Nathan. And secondly, the only reason that this nonsense is going on within the video is because your man got to have a force of gravity that he didn't even have to claim, and nobody correctly debunked it.
The only person that was there doing
the shit after he was cut off and say, "Nah, Nathan, nah."
Well, Neil was actually there, like Johnny on the spot, you know, getting the right points in, but he was getting cut off by Arwin. Irony, oh ironies. Anyway, shout out to James Richard. He says, water will fall off the edge of a flat earth, yet a spinning ball is perfectly reasonable. Hilarious. Yeah, right on. Good stuff. With my RAM at 69 degrees, verging on 70 degrees, I'm tempted to just push this computer a little bit longer and stay live. Because you guys are all right in Element?
Yeah,
we're all good.
Yep.
Amazing. Oh no, perhaps not. Somebody's causing some feedback. No, it's because they were linked. No. It's because they were watching the live stream. It's okay. I don't need to panic. Anyway, right. I'm going to take this opportunity though, in case the computer does crash, to round out in a way, in a fashion, or whatever you want to call it, by saying, first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ Panels for making this potentially extended live show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you from the live stream audience for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 member, renewing your membership, smashing the super chat, all that good stuff. But, as I say, we may stay live for a little bit longer, but that will serve as an outro should the computer crash. So we'll carry on. We won't necessarily carry on critiquing this video, I don't think, guys. What do you think? Is there anything more to be covering in this particular regard with Flatsoid's video?
Yeah, keep it going for a little longer.
Look, we need to line it up, but that's where we got up to yesterday looking at it, but we weren't really interested in that. We wanted to shred Neil. He comes back after he's sulked later on. So, maybe another day.
I was joking earlier, Neil. I hope you realise me giving you a ribbing was just, you know, in the interest of balance and all that. I absolutely recognise that you are on point here. I don't know if it needs more acknowledgement from me, because I'm often more sarcastic with you than not. So, you know, props. Kudos.
Earth is an open system. It's gravity pulls the atmosphere down.
Can't.
There we go. Earth is an open system. Gravity pulls. That would make it a force. stuff down. Nope, nope, and nope.
Oh,
It can't,
maybe he
because
wants
it's not
to
a
debate
force, first
his
of all.
own side.
And I told you, gas can only change direction with a collision. So gravity cannot change the direction of gas.
Yeah, that's a claim you made, but I'm not
It's
sure
not a
about
claim,
that.
it's demonstrable.
You're not sure. Well, we are.
Yeah, okay. You're sure the Earth is flat, and you're wrong about that. But
Okay.
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 Yeah.
The burden
No,
of
we're
proof is on
definitely not.
you because you are going against the second law of thermodynamics. You are going against what gas behavior is.
No,
The burden is on
no.
you.
You're not understanding the second law of thermodynamics.
Says the one. Says the one that says the universe is a closed system. Yeah. Okay.
Semantic.
I can hear some heckling from the.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
How
Go
can
ahead.
we hear that?
I'm sorry.
He seems to
It's
think
like
that
he's trying to insult freaking flat earth. Oh, you don't even understand the second of the thing.
No, I think that's a language thing. Nah, I think that's a language thing.
He seems to think that the word semantics is a simile of the word correction, because when Flatzoid's correcting him, he's calling it semantics, and I'm like, it's not semantics, you're just wrong.
Sorry, I was on mute when I was trying to shout out a super chat, guys, in Discord. Sorry, G+ rather. Original D-Rose, thank you very much for the super chat. Didn't even know it was a video being critiqued. I thought the dum-dums were live with us making fools of themselves. No, we're actually critiquing a video from Flatzoid from yesterday or a couple of days ago.
Saturday.
Yeah, but he can't claim any of them, Adam, because none of the laws of thermodynamics can apply to their model. So not only is he shopping and changing between these three definitions, one of these three systems, one of them is only descriptive, but he also can't do that. Like those things don't apply. Like the first law of thermodynamics states that nature can't create matter and energy. Yet that's the beginning of their whole Big Bang claim, even though it's not theirs, it's Catholic Church. And second law of thermodynamics doesn't. Rumpus even said it. It doesn't apply to their Earth, their globe Earth. It can't. And the guy is chopping and changing because he went and he said earlier that only energy can be exchanged with his globe Earth, right? Calling it a closed system. And now he's calling it an open system because he realizes that, even within their model, a certain amount of gas has to be claimed to leave leave their globe system, and obviously they have to claim rockets leave it. So, but the guy is chopping and changing all over the place.
Maybe he wants to go have a talk with Bill Nye, who says the Earth is a closed system. We cannot leave the Earth. Maybe he wants to go have a chat with him.
To be fair, though, the context in that line that Bill Nye says, he's talking in relation to litter and space junk, apparently. So you're misrepresenting him there, Chocolate. You're being dishonest.
Okay, a couple of quick shout-outs. One to D-Rose. Says, I came in 35 minutes late, presumably as justification for not knowing that this was a live covering of them. Yep, fair enough. And he says, now I'm broke. No more super chats. I really appreciate the support, D-Rose. So thank you very much indeed. Really, really appreciate it. You want a bit more video? Oh, sorry, I cut you off, Anthony. Go ahead.
It's just the space junk argument was what Bill Nye was referencing, and he was saying that there's only so much space junk that we can put up there, and in the context of space junk, it makes it a closed system because there's a finite amount of space that we can have space junk flying around. He says.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice, but the Earth is either a closed system or it's not.
I thought it was close to matter, not space junk was the definition.
No, I corrected, dude.
Semantics.
Dude, I corrected.
There's a difference between isolated and closed.
Dude,
that's not semantics. It's two different
You
meanings.
seem to be ill-informed about every single factor wherever this argument's leading. Like,
yeah,
have you even ever done physics at all? You seem to have learned physics over at NASA. Some pretender clown story time, whatever, because
he learned
you don't seem to understand anything about what we're discussing here.
He probably learned it at McToon's.
Even NASA debunked him.
Yeah, NASA even says you require containment, mate. Even NASA says you require containment. Do you know? Okay. Do you know any gas law, Gag?
By heart? No.
Do you? Okay. Can you show me one gas law in existence that does not require containment?
He just asked him if he knew any laws. Literally, the same guy, correct me if I'm wrong, told him a moment ago that he didn't understand. He accused Flatsoid of not understanding the second law of thermodynamics, which applies to gases. But now he's
and
not understanding the difference between an isolated and a closed system, which I would have destroyed him on. Like, please tell me what the difference is.
Well, let me just say, the guy came in and was challenging Flatsoid on thermodynamics. That's the whole thing. And he's proven wrong, but at the end, he still said, yeah, you're right, but you're wrong. Basically, that's what he was telling Flatsoid.
If I can pull anything out of this, it's probably not a good idea to argue with someone who's ignorant about laws of nature when they have a delusion about what the world is.
Right. Just a quick shout out to Unitox Femu. My belief is stronger than your empiricism. I think he's echoing the sentiments. Do you have a little bit more? Was there any... Guys, you're going to have to tell me if there's more relevant stuff on this particular chunk.
It descends, as I remember from... It was Saturday, weren't it? It descends in this with just lots of frustration. I don't know about you, Neil. Because you basically getting to the point where everybody's saying, look, dude, you came in saying, and with the wrong definition, you claimed it's semantics, you know nothing. That's why it goes through a bit more, like now mentioning some of the other gas laws, seeing if he could even be familiar with them. He doesn't. Standard Dunning-Kruger.
Adam, I do eventually get it off that, hello, gravity is no longer a force. It has been superseded. I do finally get it in. It's agreed, and then it's moved on.
I'm just
Yes.
trying to find where that is, Neil.
Okay.
Oh, no. Gas law. No, I can't.
And we're breathing gas, right?
Yeah.
So containment needed, right?
Yes.
Thank you. You just debunked yourself.
No. It's contained.
Wow.
That was the easiest debate ever, guys.
No, it's contained in the universe.
Yeah, well, then it wouldn't radiate out like it does, wouldn't it? Because
if there was no
can
other
you demonstrate
force
a gas pressure gradient? There is a very thick layer of gas right next to a whole bunch of extremely thin gas. Can you physically demonstrate that ratio within containment of gas
sorry
pressure?
again, Arwine. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Can you demonstrate or reference any demonstration of a gas pressure gradient where a very thick amount, like actually palpably thick amount of gas pressure is sitting in a very minute space right next to a very large volume where there's an extremely low pressure situation going on? Can you physically demonstrate that? Has anybody ever been capable of demonstrating that? Because that is the scenario that you are claiming with the heliocentric claim, because that's what's palpably going on, right? Very thick compared to the amount of air that's claimed to be in outer space. And then considering the entire volume of that, that doesn't comport. You can't have that super thick layer of gas sticking onto something, right, to that enormous amount of volume being that thin. There's no way you can ever create that scenario.
On Earth? No.
No, not on Earth, anywhere.
Yes.
No, you can't create it anywhere. You can't demonstrate that gas pressure ratio, that gradient formation. Doesn't exist. It only exists in science fiction.
No.
Yes.
On Earth.
Yeah, you can demonstrate it. That's right.
Okay.
No, I can't demonstrate it because it's
it doesn't exist.
Okay.
No,
it only exists in your imagination.
Entire Earth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
you
Guy.
can't demonstrate it.
Okay, Guy, you can see my screen, Guy.
Yeah.
This is from NASA, correct? From the Glenn Research Center. Can you read what's at the bottom there where it says wall? The pressure of a gas is then a measure of the average linear momentum of the moving molecules of a gas. The pressure acts perpendicular, normal to the wall. The tangential shear component of the force is related to the viscosity of the gas. You understand what pressure over force of area is, like PSI?
Yeah.
So you do understand that means containment, correct?
No, in a perfect gas environment, yes.
Why is it that every demonstration for gas pressure requires containment? Even
because it's on Earth.
Okay, let's put it this way: you measure your pressure
Do
gradient.
it in space.
Okay.
Then you're
well,
correct.
it doesn't exist.
But doing
We
it
can't
on
do
Earth,
it in your fictional medium. You
Yeah, again, that's where he's begged the question. Exactly. Do it in space, because his entire premise, as pointed out by me earlier, relies upon him begging the question that there is a space. So if he's posing the question, what are you breathing? What am I breathing, with the assumption that the sky is a vacuum? And when I demonstrate all examples of containment being a prerequisite for gas pressure, you're going to say, oh no, but not if you go out to my begging the question sky vacuum. So that's a, what's that appeal to? There's a fallacy name for that.
Appeal to consensus? Appeal to
No,
authority?
don't just guess. Don't worry about it. Appeal to the future fallacy is a similar thing, where you're appealing to something that hasn't been demonstrated to be proven in the first place, and he's appealing to it. Well, go out and do this in my unproven assumption of a sky vacuum, is his rebuttal.
It's just a begging the question. Assumption. It's just, how can you prove that you can have gas pressure without containment? Look up at the sky. Isn't that what you're trying to prove? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I just assume there is a sky vacuum. The whole argument about whether or not we can have gas pressure, that's the stuff we're breathing, without containment, is the discussion on the table. And his response is, go out to my assumption that I haven't proven and we're demonstrating cannot exist because you'd need containment. No, but if you go out to where there isn't any containment, it proves that you don't need it.
Yeah, but the guy is at present, what he's claiming is PV equals N or G, because they have to take temperature away for their claim. Temperature and any effect that temperature can have on gases must be removed, the same way as they must remove other things geometrically for their claims. So PV equals N or T doesn't apply to the model. They have to say PV equals N or G. Sorry, Anthony, I think someone was coming in.
Oh, I was agreeing with you, Brian. It's not the taking away of the T, it's the addition of the G. If you listen to him, he's got to have gravity affecting gas particle behavior. It's the only way that they are subject to gravity, and therefore a downward bias, that he can maintain his gas pressure without physical containment. He's claiming he's got force containment. And that's the point that needs to be agreed upon from point one. What is gas behavior? Because if you can agree on that, he can't then go back to say gas go down, go boom, boom. But as you say, Brian, he's trying to strap G in so that we can manipulate gas behavior with a downward bias.
Well, why I say he's removing the T is that
one of you in G+
because
needs to mute. One of you's causing feedback for Brian. Can you all mute up if you're not already? Go ahead, Brian.
Okay, thank you, Nathan. Yeah, why I say they have to remove the T is because for them to claim a gas pressure gradient, right, which is part of their claim, that eventually becomes a vacuum, they must take away the all elements of temperature gradient for that. So they have to give the gas, the air, a weight and claim that is caused by gravity, because they're claiming the air is a mass, which, taking away the fact that gases are billions and billions and trillions of tiny little particles, they're making it all at one, like they would with a solid, and claim that has weight, and there's more gas and more weight of air at the surface, and less as you move away, because the pull of a force of gravity becomes less. So that's why I would say whereas in a container, the only way to show as a demonstration, in reality, a gas pressure gradient is through the use of temperature. So they have to remove the temperature to, you're right, Adam, that they have to tacitly agree that when they want to talk about actual gas behavior, that they'll use temperature then. But then they'll do a switcheroo, like they often did with the was it the Coriolis effect or whatever, where they'll do the switcheroo where they will switch one suitcase for the other, and suddenly they're not claiming or talking about PV equals nRT. They're suddenly talking about PV equals nRG when it's on the larger scale, and they're not telling you about that. Not that you know, but I'm not saying you, particularly you, but just the royal you, whatever, as Kiwi would say.
Right, I'm going to step away for a second just to make a drink. Hopefully, I was hoping Sleeping Warrior had lots more to say than he had, but obviously not.
Come on, Anthony, say something.
I'll play a bit of video. It's okay.
We can have a chat if you want.
You've already conceded with every step that you can't actually demonstrate it. You're telling us to demonstrate it in your fictional medium, okay?
Yeah.
No,
we're not going to demonstrate your idiotic claim in your fictional medium.
No,
it's up to you to demonstrate your proof
experiments
for your
that can
claim
be done
here so that we can witness it.
Yeah, but you're demanding experiments that can be done.
What experiments?
Well, then it's nonsense, and you're just blabbermouthing
No,
a fictional nonsense situation.
No, just
yes,
it can
because
be
you can't demonstrate it.
Flatsoy, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, Neil.
Sure.
Flatsoy, where else are we going?
Are you going to say that's his concession? Experiment that can't be done. Go ahead, Adam.
He's got that. But I was about to compliment Arwen. Smashing him, not letting him go, jumping on him, but keep him focused now. You listen to it, and he gets that admission by staying focused.
Yeah, shout out to Arwen. That was nicely
brilliant. Brilliant. Didn't let him go like a dog with a bone. He just kept ragging at him right until he got the collapsed admission.
And he did get it. That was a concession at the end when he's saying you can't do this. It's like what he's actually saying is you can't achieve gas pressure without a container, but with a hint of it can't be done because of my excuse, go out to space to do this. So in saying that in response, his only defense is to say, you can't go out to where I beg the question exists and haven't proven, therefore this can't be done. It's not an experiment, therefore this isn't a fair win. That's his only rebuttal at this stage, right?
Yeah, I don't think he's figured that level of defense out, to be honest.
Yeah, he snatched his own wig off. Yeah. That one.
His defense was there are no experiments. You can't have experiments for this. Well, that's another lovely admission, isn't it? So
You're going to demonstrate
he doesn't know what an experiment
here on Earth, correct? That's
we live on Earth. Yeah, we live on Earth.
Right.
That's the only place we can. But like I was saying, how do you measure your atmospheric pressure? Gag?
PSI.
Okay, but what do you use? What you it's based on what? Using a barometer, correct?
Yeah.
So a container then.
Does it go down? Does the atmospheric pressure go down? How higher you go?
Pressure gradient still requires gas pressure, which requires the containment in the first place. You can't move to delta if you haven't realized you first need the container to have the gas pressure to have your pressure gradient. We can demonstrate pressure gradients.
Okay, Flatsoid. Sorry. We have a container. Yeah. Absolutely. You're 100% correct. Why does the pressure gradient go down? How much higher we go?
Gas behavior. Because we live in a dynamic system. The more, if you lower down to the ground.
Dynamic system, not.
Isn't he just said we have a contained system, and then essentially after acknowledging it, go to the straw man of gas pressure, delta X argument of gas pressure gradients?
What he actually said is what he was trying to say was if we have a container, then how do we have a gas pressure gradient? Ignoring temperature, completely ignoring the temperature gradient, because that's what they have to do. PV equals nRG. That's what they have to do.
Not closed system.
Dynamic
that has
closed
nothing
system.
to do with the containment. It has to do with the content.
Yeah.
It's because it collisions.
There's
less
more
gas,
collisions.
less gas
Okay,
particles get higher
and
up.
There's many different influences. There's temperature, heat, different types of gases, gases coming out of the ground, gases reacting with
it's
things on the
only
ground.
denser
Okay,
at the surface, and the gas pressure is lower the higher you go.
Okay, Gag, let's do it this way. If you climb in a car and you stick a pressure gauge.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, thank you. Like what the guy is doing there is ignoring temperature completely. You hear him. How come we have the most pressure at the surface level? That's where the most heat is, right? The less the heat, the less the air content, because there's less movement. Less
That's where the
expansion.
most
Sorry, Keith?
gas is. Why go to temperature? That's where the gas is created, and in a lower volume. Yeah, you can speak to temp. Why even go there? That's where it's mostly created with the least volume.
I did
say that.
Hold on, you're making it hard to hear, Neil. Right, hold on. Both Quantum Eraser and Brian are correct, right? However, I would undermine both of them by saying that this is buying into the burden of proof reversal fallacy. There's no reason for Arwin or Flatsoid to justify why we have a gas pressure gradient. Do we have one? Yes, we do. Are they making a claim about the sky? No, they're not. They're asking how the sky can be a vacuum, given that we have gas pressure. So is it up to them to justify why there's a higher pressure at a lower altitude versus a lower pressure at a high altitude, or justify that with temperature or the existence of the creation of gas at a ground level, therefore increasing the quantity and pressure? No, they do not. It's a burden of proof reversal fallacy. Prove that you can have a sky vacuum. That's your paradigm's fundamental requirement. Your burden, you prove it by proving we can have gas pressure without a container.
We've been straw man. We got an admission, and then he went to gradient, and people jumped on it because they know the answer. You didn't need to go there. Go back to his admission that we've got containment. He had just admitted it. Okay. If he wants to go to gas pressure, we just or gradient. We've only got to say what is the antecedent for gas pressure first and foremost before we get a gradient, and Flatsoid kind of does that. They're the points to stick on. Don't go about it's produced at the ground. Don't go anywhere that. Don't talk about temperature, hydroscopic effects. Yeah, there's no need to justify the gradient. He's just admitted there's a gradient. What's the antecedent for gas pressure, please? And he's already, the thing is, in this case, he's already admitted it. He's already conceded the containment.
Right, that was already
Flatsoid
done.
has already said that too. Flatsoid already said that the whole antecedent relationship before he then claimed what causes the gradient. Right, so it's already been discussed technically.
Arwin, props I've just given you. Right, you was on about the day when I was talking. Was I a little bit over the top? If that was the bit you was on about, I just gave you props for it. You weren't over the top. You were just dogged because you knew you'd got him. So you stuck with it, and you were over talking a bit, but you were one that was in primacy, in my opinion, anyway. And you got him, and you got the admissions out of him.
Right.
Well done.
Yeah.
And that's also the reason why I stopped Neil, even though he was going to bring up a very legitimate point about gravity. It's just the timing of it, you know.
Yeah,
I was
Neil's
right in the
timing was
middle
right.
of that ride, and I was getting there.
No, that was at the beginning where Neil should have been listened to. Neil then disappears. You and Flatsoid have run this bit, and you got there.
That guy was right. I think that guy was right, though. I was wrong because they were trying to focus on gas and gas pressure. So maybe it was the wrong time to say that.
No, he's invoked gravity. Get him to define it first, because he's going to invoke it having an effect on gas pressure behavior, on gas particle behavior. So before we can then hold him to that, kind of need to know what kind of gravity is going to invoke an effect on gas particle behavior.
Couple of quick shout outs. Sorry, just one sec. Unitox Femi Slasher, thank you very much for the super chat. He says gas pressure gradient speed is only 66,000 miles per hour. Thank you for the super chat. And Rob Keane says, yo, back at you. 40 months as a member. Wow, just goes to show. Thank you very much for the super chat.
I just want to say that no, Neil, you were right, because what can happen if you don't get someone to define, let's say, gravity, they can then switch up what they're claiming gravity to be at will. So he can go into curvature of space-time when he needs to then, or he can go into whatever other nonsense he wants to make up. Whereas when he has to define and state what it is he's claiming, which gravity he's claiming, then he's stuck with that. He can't talk about the curvature of space-time if he's after already claiming a force of attraction. He can't talk about a force of attraction if he's after claiming curvature of space-time, you know, or whatever other nonsense, quantum gravity, or unless he wants to go into it. So that's why it's important.
Well, he wasn't even. This later comes out. I mean, it's a pretty long conversation, and at the end, it will be apparent that he doesn't even know anything about that at all.
Yeah, we know he's a numpty. We're just evaluating performances here.
Quick shout out to sorry, one sec. Shout out to Skeptic936 who says Divergent Droid rocks. I couldn't agree more. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat.
Yep, what's up?
In there, that's very barometer, and you let it sit in the sun the whole day. Does the pressure change? The pressure gauge change a reading?
Yeah.
What caused that pressure reading to change? Was it gravity or was it gas behavior?
No, heat.
Gas behavior. You just debunked yourself again. That's how we have.
How?
Gravity does not do anything. Gas behavior is the reason why we have pressure gradients. Temperature, pressure.
No.
Oh.
Do you know
you just agreed with me.
a formula for density?
Oh, now he wants to push gravity into there, guys. This is a total red herring.
Let's
total
move on
red
to
herring.
the next factor. I mean, why not?
Total red herring.
But answer him why it's thinner above, because there's nothing producing gas all the way up in the sky, my friend. You got any trees floating around up there?
Okay, let's put it this way. Let's put it this way. The ground is a large surface wall, correct? So there's more surface area for the gas to collide off of. So you got more collisions.
Who's off mute in G+?
Me.
Oh, what did you want?
Flatsoid's not really given the best answer here. He needs to be talking about the biogeochemical cycle and how it's powered by the sun and how all the gas is created at ground level because of it. He's not talking about the best answer here because that explains the gradient.
Why? I'm not saying you're wrong. Hold on. You just had this from QE and from Brian, and I've undermined both of them, so I'm just going to do the same thing to you. Sorry, is it your burden? What was your claim again about what the sky is, Anthony?
Well, he's asking the question, well, why is it we have the gradient then? And the answer to that is what I said. It's the biogeochemical cycle.
And what I'm in effect asking is, why would that be your burden to satisfy? It's a burden of proof reversal fallacy.
Well, it's also his own ignorance that he's displaying to the audience. If you can answer him with a direct answer, which actually answers the question, then it shows his ignorance because there is an equal and opposite alternative explanation for why there is the gradient. And it's not because there's a pressure or a pull force. It's because that's where it's all created.
Okay, I'm going to clarify something for the audience.
It's irrelevant.
It is irrelevant. I'm just going to clarify exactly that. I think you're going the same place I'm about to, Adam. Hold on 1 second. Number one, Brian, Quantum Eraser, and Anthony are 100% correct. Not only should you know this, right? You won't win if you don't. However, what I'm trying to undermine them with is something that runs parallel with it, which is to say that put on the spot, you should be able to justify this. But recognise that you don't have to. Recognise that the burden on the table is proving the sky is a vacuum. That's the only reason that they're discussing gas pressure. Therefore, the burden is solely on the globe believer to prove his assertion that the sky is a vacuum and that gas pressure is achieved without the prerequisite requirement for a containment for the pressure to be in. So therefore, it's a burden of proof reversal fallacy. In spite of, you will have heard me, Anthony, and QE, and Brian all argue this point with Globers when push comes to shove. So you've got to know it, and they're all right. But I'm more right because it is a burden proof reversal fallacy.
You're trying to win a debate here, not educate the man. Okay? You've got him. You've got him. He keeps talking. Why is there a gradient? Well, we've got to ask him, gradient of what? Pressure. How do you get pressure? Right. And you just got to go in that loop. If you go in trying to explain the gradient, it doesn't prove or disprove anything. It doesn't change what is the prerequisite for gas pressure containment.
So what you're saying is,
You stay on until
Neil
it
first.
crumbles.
Neil, hold on, Brian, and Neil, then Brian.
I'm sorry, Adam. So what you're basically saying is, once he says that, we got him because he's admitting that we need containment.
Yes
Right?
and no.
Admitted it as well.
No and yes. Yes, technically speaking, that is the winning point. It doesn't mean that you've won because it's a debate. So getting the... Was that someone from Discord? Feel free. Doob, go ahead. Dude. Dude, you're just hovering off mute. You're hot micing. Can you pop yourself on mute, please?
Neil, it's not you've won. You just got to make sure you get that concession in the debate. The debate can continue once he's conceded. Then you can go on to something else. But you've got him at the point he has to concede. So go get it. Don't tell him anything.
Exactly.
Educate him.
I'll reiterate Adam's point because he's... Adam's correct. It's a winning point. It doesn't mean you've won, which is to say, no. If you don't labour and stress the point, which is why Arwin got props earlier. If you don't labour that and hold them to task, then you haven't won. That's the point. You start justifying why we've got a gas pressure gradient. Maybe I should get into that for the audience because you'll be challenged with it. So you may as well know the answer. But the moment you know it, lock it away and don't use it because you don't need to. Unless you start claiming what the bloody sky is. If you're in the midst of counter space, that's your own bloody problem. Deal with your own claims. But if you, like
Can we
us...
summarize it in one sentence instead of 10 minutes?
Yeah, go ahead.
Don't chase delta X, stick with X. Can we move on now?
Very concise.
But that's too concise. Delta X is the gas pressure gradient. X is gas pressure. Delta X is a gas pressure gradient. You're chasing down how we have gas pressure if the sky is a vacuum. Don't explain delta X. Extremely concise, if not too concise, QE. Yes, we may move on.
Let's not forget that your opponent doesn't need to admit his concession for you to defeat him.
That's a very... I like that. That's a very alien concept to me. Personally, can you expand on that?
Well, I mean, it's like in chess when you put your opponent in check, they can deny it, but you just look at the board and it's self-evident that they're in check. They've lost.
If you put them in check, don't say check. This is the point. You've got them in check. Make sure the audience knows they're in check. Pursue the point till they say, "Oh God, I'm in check." That's what you've got to get.
You can do that. You can do that if you personally require the self-validation. I simply don't.
Yes.
I simply defeat my opponent and walk away.
That's the audience. You're right. Hold on. Let's just agree with everyone. Let's keep the key. Hello. Let's keep agree. Yes, you are correct. However, there is an audience, and they aren't necessarily on the same wavelength as you or the other player. And there's no sportsmanlike integrity like there would be in a game of chess. So while Adam's saying you've got to state that they're in check, that's very much the case, so that the audience is aware of it. Go ahead, Adam. 1 second.
Yeah, you display the board to the audience and say, "Look, these are the rules of chess. He's in check. I've won. Regardless if he concedes or not, I've won." The end.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no.
I want to have this out. I'm sorry, Adam. I know we're cutting off your point. No, I hate to disagree with you, AI. You're normally so much on point, but that isn't correct. So, at the point that you could turn the board to the audience is the point that the opponent in this regard has no sportsmanlike integrity and will tell the audience that that is a not check. And the reason I'm pointing this out, I'm nearly there. Just pop yourself on mute. Just do your breathing. The reason they do that is because ideally at that stage, you will argue not about the position and whether or not they've got to make a move to come out of the position, but about the rules of the game with the audience. Appeal to the audience about the rules of the game and whether or not this is or is not check, rather than dealing with being in check. Now, if they can get the audience to question the rules of the game, the debating point that has then been won, in quotes, isn't being won because it isn't being recognised and isn't being debated. The rules of the bloody game get debated. So that was a tactic that we had to deal with here. and we would deal with it if it came up again, where they try and take you off the winning point and debate a non sequitur, because that's better than losing to the point of being in check by comparison in analogy. I'll let AI respond and then Adam.
Hold on.
And
What
it's
is the
checkmate, not check.
point?
Because check people can get out of.
We know what
Sorry.
check is. We know what checkmate is. We don't need to clarify that. The audience isn't that dumb.
Well, I have a question real quick. What is the contentious point that is being argued? Because I don't think one side of this is even understanding what point of contention is being argued.
Sky vacuum. Gas pressure
why.
with gas pressure without a container. Okay, go ahead, Adam, then AI. Or was it AI, then Adam?
In relation to that, yeah. So first to AI. It's demonstrated earlier on when Arwin gets his tail up. That's the point he knows he's won. He's won. He knows he's won. He knows he's won that. Yeah. And so, yeah, he could walk away. But he doesn't. He goes for the throat to demonstrate to the audience and to get the concession. That, to me, is crucial. And in relation to John's point, no, I don't think he does know what the point is, which is why, if you get that feeling, it's important to get statements of concession from them. With an umpty like this, that's what I'm saying from the start. Define gas behavior, define what gravity is. The time he's got to this, you can then cite him to destroy himself, to demonstrate to the audience, because you know he's not going to necessarily go it's flat, but you can show all of his points are completely debunked by his own statements by this point.
But is it, Brian still has something to say in a way.
It's about winning the debate to the audience is the point I'd reiterate there in terms of what AI said, and that's why we're doing this, to make it unequivocal to the listener that you've won. Not because because you've done this 1,000 times, you've gotten to the point in the conversation where you've won, so you could walk away without shouting check. Shout check, make everybody look at the board and make everybody realise he put himself in check.
Okay, just let AI respond, then we'll have John and Brian.
Yeah, so it depends on what you mean by concession. And I'm saying they don't have to admit that they concede. They can still concede by their actions and their words, and you point out their concession. And then after that, they refuse to admit that they actually conceded. So you don't have to belabor the point until you get them to conscientiously say, yes, I concede. Their willful concession isn't required.
Yeah, I see your point. Same as last time.
Statement of I concede.
Hold on one second, Adam. Just one sec.
Isn't necessary.
Okay, just one second. John, and then John, then Brian, then Adam. Go ahead, John.
I don't think it's a reasonable point to argue over whether gas pressure requires a container. That doesn't seem like a debatable topic to me, but I could be wrong.
That's where we're at. That's his point. That's his whole premise for his belief. So that's the point that needs settling. That natural law.
Hold on. Brian's going to go next, but I think what John's saying is, when you talk about an irrefutable fact that there is an antecedent consequent relationship between containment and gas pressure, that is not a debatable point. That's a winning argument that defeats their argument of a sky vacuum, but somehow this has turned into a debating point, I think is John's point.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying you've got to go to gas pressure behavior. You get the behavior of the molecules as described. Yeah. What do they do? So that what is your gravity? And then hold him on that point. How, given that these are the facts, do you claim this without containment? You've just admitted that there is no gravitational force on gas molecule behavior. So how is your containment occurring? Because he's the one that's making the claim. We don't have to prove gas pressure needs containment. He's the one that's saying we've got this state where gas pressure is achieved without containment.
I see. So in summary,
he claims gravity.
Hold on. In summary, it's a recognition that the point of discussing gas pressure is not to debate about gas pressure. It's to win the argument with gas pressure and its behavior and its requirement for containment. Don't debate it. Use it to win.
Yeah, I'm not going to defend gas pressure behavior to him. I'm just going to keep stating it and asking how in his worldview that the containment is achieved. Because it's his claim we're discussing. It's his ball. It's his thing that's against natural law, against gas behaviour. So that's what needs clarifying.
Okay, AI after Brian, who's been waiting eternity to get a word in. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I just want to go back to the whole thing about X and delta X. The only reason that I'm even talking about temperature there is because this guy has invoked because the G that this guy has been invoking was not dealt with at the start. So he's then gone on to basically claim, without saying it, PV equals NRG. So then I'm having to correct him on the fact that there is no G, there is a T, and he's trying to remove the T and insert the G. But I would also say about the debating, it depends on who you're debating and what the audience is. If half the audience, or a good portion, or more than half the audience, is a load of numpties from the ball side, then you're probably better off just sticking on no, prove X, not talk about delta X. But if you're dealing with someone who's educated and an audience that is a live audience that's educated, you really would show up the other person if you could detail how wrong they really are by detailing the actual facts of how we have a gas pressure gradient.
Okay,
So
and as true as it was the last time you said it, I'm still going to reiterate the same point with PV equals nRT instead of PV equals nRG when you say they ignore temperature. What comes before T or G in the formula after the P?
V.
So wouldn't you say that that was the most critical detail?
I would, but this is taking place after the force of gravity claim that they would have had to claim has not been taken apart correctly. So they're still claiming it. That's the problem.
I see. So I know this rounds out nicely.
Yeah.
So your objection towards Arwin, please hold your tongue a moment, in regards to him giving them the force, is now valid. I'm sorry, Arwin.
Yeah,
I never gave him the force. It's a stupid straw man. I specifically disclaimed it. You admitted to that disclaimer, Nathan. It's just whining.
No, that still stands also, and that's still correct. Where Brian's saying he didn't need to lead into this by inference because you gave it to him. I know you didn't. You put the weasel words in. It didn't matter. He still used it against you, and that's where Brian's right. I even defended it as a sly way of moving the conversation on, which still is also valid. So we may not have got to this point, but for the fact that you introduced it and gave it to him in a Weasley way that was perfectly disclaimed. So, you're all right. You're all right. It's all good.
Yeah, I didn't weasel anything in. It wasn't weasel words. It was diving into his paradigm to disprove his paradigm. That's not a weasel word.
No, I'll take it back.
I'll giving him anything.
I'll take it back.
Simply showing the model that he uses and how it doesn't work from within the model.
I get it.
That's what I did. That's all I did. I never.
Let me just agree to calm Arwin down. No, you're right. They're not weasel words. If you're slipping in stuff to let you have an escape from your just so story, you matter of fact stated that it was considered as a very weak force. That's not Weasley. That's a statement of accuracy and fact. So I'll take it back. When I said Weasley words, I was wrong. There you go. Happy?
And I didn't give him gravity. I merely showed within the paradigm of his assumption of gravity how it doesn't work within that assumption.
Yeah, we got
that. That's
all.
all.
We got that.
Owen, can I ask why you just asked Nathan to take the compliment away from you? Well, the Weasley wasn't you. It was the clever use of Weasley words to get that point in. I didn't like you using that until I heard Nathan's critique. And you could hold him to it later. It could be held now because we've admitted that it doesn't do anything. We got that weak force, as you described, that it doesn't have an effect. We could use that against him now. So I wouldn't poo-poo what you did per se. You've got to be able to use it later. Otherwise, it's a little bit superfluous. But the way in which you formulated the sentences didn't invoke anything on you, and it tried to tie him to something. I didn't see the purpose at the time. I don't see necessarily, as Nathan's paying you a compliment there, that you want rid of that compliment. Because if you're going to use that later, that was a very good use of language.
I agree.
Well, I've done that exact rollout right here on this FED show when we got ballers on. I did that exact same process right here, and we talked about how that worked.
Thank you.
So you should all be recognizing.
Okay, thank you. I just need to explain this to the audience. Right.
In the bud.
Guys, just one sec. Okay, before we round out the live show. Look, there's a tendency to feel like we are overly critical of Arwin, Flatsoid, or even the opponents in many instances. And while that is strictly true, we are it being exactly that, hypercritical, right? It doesn't mean that what the person has done in the moment is right or wrong. It doesn't mean that it was a correct or an incorrect implementation of the argument, a good or a bad way of leading somebody on. It's just our way of discussing and disseminating a hypercritical discussion and how it could be improved. That's all. Now, in this particular very hyper-specific example, leading the conversation on by stating that it was formally accepted as a weak force was enough for this guy to try and worm out of it to the point where we're having to disclaim to the audience that when you get the win, which was achieved here, you don't have to have the opponent concede. Well, why isn't he? Well, because in his mind's eye, he's still got a begging the question sky vacuum and a weak force that he's had conceded by you. You didn't, but that's a very, very hyper-specific critique in this exact example. Now, bearing in mind, we've been a lot more critical of Flatsoid than we have of you, Arwin. Not only that, we know you. It's like earlier when Brian and QE and Anthony Riley were all discussing how you should understand how the gas pressure gradient works. Totally valid. But overriding that is the fact that it's a begging the question and burden of proof reversal fallacy. Well, does that mean that I'm saying Anthony's wrong or QE's wrong, or that they should take it personally that they've done something wrong? No, definitely not. That's just not the case. But there's an idealistic way a debate will go, and it's normally foisted or floundered by the numpty dickhead that you're opposing, because he doesn't understand his own bloody argument in this case, or he has to concede but doesn't want to. He wants to save face after the fact, so will deny his own concession. Things like that just leave a slightly bitter taste in the mouth of the audience, and it might need reiterating or critiquing in this example with you, Arwin, as the example. But it doesn't mean we're saying you're wrong or you need to change anything or you've done something that could be better, although that is exactly what we're doing, really.
Right, but in this case, bringing that specific detail about weak force up, it helped him to completely step away from it, while in later arguments, in another attempt to clarify gas pressure without a container being impossible, he would just go, nah, nah, nah. And well, is that what you want to end up right away? Because that's the default position you're going to go to if you cut corners and go straight to the point, as QE likes to see it.
Yeah, you'd have killed it quick. This wouldn't have went on that long.
Arwin wanted to play with his food, man.
That's
Arwin,
exactly
just tell him you wanted to play with your food, bro. It's okay.
But it's also about having a show,
Yeah,
It's over in
you wanted to
15
have a
minutes,
little
there's no
fun.
show.
Hold on,
Listen.
you can have a show and quickly cut it.
There it is. There it is.
We
And it
do it
got
all the
rumpus by
time.
chocolate. Do you want to just give that little confession again, Arwin? The Anthony Riley defense you just gave? Chocolate rumpus
What?
a little bit?
Oh, yeah, if you all nip it in the butt immediately, you don't have a show.
Oh, really?
Exactly.
See, that's the Anthony Riley defense. You got to beg the question a little bit alongside them. You got to give them a little bit of their model and they're begging the question. No, you didn't, though.
Yeah, but
That's
you
the
got to
point.
ration it very carefully,
Look,
Don't give
How
him
does Nathan have
too
a show?
much.
But you
in
didn't.
Dragon Ball Z, they don't start off fighting at full power, right? You start off with the warm up, you start a little training, you test each other first. And that's what Arwin was doing. It's just testing that guy's power level.
Right,
That's it.
and his power level sucked. He didn't know anything.
I was going to say, Alwyn, in your defense, this guy had been claiming he was going to talk about thermodynamics and stuff coming in. At the point you raised that, you didn't realize what a full retard he was. And he genuinely had no knowledge of anything whatsoever. So
You don't even understand the thermo with the thing.
The thermodynamics thing that he later confessed he didn't know any of the gas laws, which second law of thermodynamics would be applicable. Yeah, he critiqued Arwin for not knowing that. Yeah, you didn't know what you didn't know, Arwin. It's not your fault. You can't. The only thing you can't account for is the numpty idiot of opposing you. You have to think on your feet when it comes to these things. It's like back to Earth Chronicles, right? I've got one guy telling me Earth too big, can't see curve. Other guy, here's Soundly's picture of curve. You know, that's the kind of curveball from two people on the same side that you can't prepare for that, can you? There's no amount of out of the box thinking that prepares you for two people opposing you that are completely contradicting each other.
Wait, at that point you did
If
stop
they
and
think
tell
they're
them
agreeing, yeah.
maybe you guys want to have a discussion between yourselves for 5 minutes while I say here go get a coffee.
Right.
Like, what do you mean? What are you telling me that this is curve and the other one saying we're too small to see the curve? Y'all could discuss that between yourselves.
Indeed. And with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this extended live show, which hasn't crashed, woohoo! This is unfortunately where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Well, I'm not giving up that hope. That would be unpatriotic of me.
Don't give up on your people, Arwen.
Can I just talk
I
to Arwen
won't.
for a sec?
Trust me, I won't.
Can I just have Arwen's ear for a second? I got quite passionate. I did the same thing with Paul on the pre-show, just before a massive crash. So, moaning about my stress of running the show. Well, I just wanted to point something out to you. So, last time the show crashed, you were like, why didn't you just go back to the last settings? And I explained that after I tune up the PC, get it more stable, I then put my next steps in, which in that case, I told you specifically what I was going to do. Up voltage from 1.3 to 1.35. That's what I did. Well, 1.33 to 1.35. Yeah, that's right. Anyway, I could do that in 2 minutes. I restarted the computer when it crashed, went to BIOS, upped the voltage of the RAM, went back in, loaded every piece of software. It took 10 minutes because I was doing it with a bit of adrenaline, and got back into the live show within 20 minutes, I would say, of the crash. Because I had a plan in place to up the voltage. I can do that 2 more times, and then it'll be back to, nah, I'm going to have to dedicate a day to figuring out this problem again. But, you know, that I wouldn't normally bore you with, but for the fact that, you know, something extra, in this case element, has caused a bit of instability. Did it last time, I've rectified it, it stayed stable, now it hasn't. But I could immediately rectify it. And from that point forward, seems stable, right? Well, when in a month that happens, there is one more step I can take to just immediately resolve the problem. If it then happens 2 months after that, I can do the same thing again. But then if it happens in a year after that, I'll have to revert to spending a day sorting out the problem. Do you see where I'm going?
No.
No.
Get lost.
Yeah, you
old
were kind of
bastards.
hard on Paul.
Get lost.
It's okay. We just had a concern about whether you're prioritizing the live show over your computer functioning, and it's still inconclusive. So it's up to you, man. It's your show. So.
All right, we done with the
to
bed
be
or
fair,
what?
there would be no show if there was no computer. So like the computer is
That
the
is true.
necessary antecedent to the show.
Right, it's like the feeding machines in the Matrix in Zion. Like, you know,
Huey's got
it's the same
something,
scenario.
And more importantly,
Are we done with the bed or what?
or more importantly, without a Paul to fund the computer, there wouldn't be a computer.
Oh, brother.
Well, that's just gotta say, as I moaned at him this morning, or got a bit touchy with him.
Someone hear someone in the background complaining.
That's my kids. I can open the mic and let you hear them screaming if you want. My wife's just nipped out and gone, I'm just going to leave the kids. So that means that they're going to scream their heads off for the next 10 minutes till she gets back.
How's Clover doing, by the way?
Good. As in, how is she medicated for her epilepsy?
Oh, just overall, like general, how is she doing? You have to go into detail if you don't want to.
I don't mind going into details. We medicate her. So as a result, she's having parts of her brain shut down, so she doesn't have seizures, which means that she stammers and stutters and has, depending on the medication, various different behavioural problems because she's less inhibited. So on the one hand, she's not rolling around having seizures, which is great. On the other hand, when she's trying to get her word out because she's stammering over her words, which she didn't used to do, it's a bit upsetting. But other than that, I'd rather the latter, which is to say I can deal with her having a bit of speech problem or new speech problems rather than dealing with her choking on her own vomit whilst having a seizure. I can tell you which one's more preferable. So there you go. That's as much as I can give you as an update.
Nathan, just out of curiosity, have you looked into CBD and the effects on epilepsy?
Yeah, I tried it.
Did it have any effect?
Well, I didn't try it, obviously.
No.
No, not really. It didn't stop the seizures, which is all we were, at the time that I was trying that. That's all we were trying to do. Of course, my wife's disappeared, doors going, kids are screaming. Talk about yourselves.
Well, I just want to say that he gave away, he gave out his admittance. He said, when I added element, but then he went straight past that. As that's the whole argument we're making with him. You added something. So you changed something. Something was working. You changed it. And then you said something else needs to change. Whereas it was actually the adding of element.
And go back to the previous stable setting. But I mean, his reasoning and his plan, his diagram of this development of his computer is very complicated, right? Don't you get it? So he can't alter the schedule or it will all go to hell and he will explain it even more hours to us. So let's just
does he already have... Sorry, Adam.
Go on, Charles.
No, I was just going to ask, does he already have Element set up? Like, are people in Element right now or are they in Discord? Or both? Like, what's... I don't know.
This has nothing to do with that. This is a union issue.
Both chocolate.
It's about workers' rights.
See, somebody answered both. Okay. Cool. Thank you, man.
What was QE going to say a while ago? He's probably gone.
Still going on about the Earth accelerating upwards.
Usually when QE comes in, that means he has something. So I'm waiting.
He's just waiting to announce a show.
Oh, okay. He has a show tonight.
Hey, I just wanted to say something. Shout out to Zell Solo, what we were talking about on the live chat that I didn't get finished determining about determining someone's voice. This is far left from what y'all talking about. Determining someone's voice being prejudiced or presuming someone's appearance by their voice. And Aaron, I was only fucking with you. I was only, messing with you. But when you do vocal recordings, and Chocolate can tell you this, and Eli being rappers, and we do vocal recording and EQing and mixing people's voices and voice analyzing, you can listen to somebody's voice and you can assume.
Voice, I know.
You could. Yeah, the same. You can assume
can
like
go very
Chocolate will tell you right now. The huskier the voice, you think the person is huge, especially when it comes to singing or rapping. The smaller the voice, you think the person is little. That's why when you hear somebody's voice and you see them, you're like, wow, you don't look like what you sound like. And
Mike
also
Tyson?
culturally wrong. Yeah, Mike Tyson, exactly.
Mike Tyson.
You would never think. See, and it's hard to do it when you see them first. So Zell asked me, what do I think about Clint Eastwood? And that's not fair to say because I've already seen Clint Eastwood, so I can't really make that determination. However, if I had heard Clint first and then saw him, then I'd be able to tell you that he doesn't look like his voice. So it's hard to do that once you've seen the person. And also, like I said, culturally, you can't lie. Y'all can tell that Eli, maybe not me so much, yeah, me too, but you could tell Eli, me, and Chocolate, we are brothers. You could tell. We talk from our chests. We're more like, yes, we don't talk. We don't talk through our nose.
Black.
We don't talk through our
Neo,
nose.
that's what it
Most
is.
of us don't talk like this, like the way Orange speaks. We don't speak like that. Huh?
Not for nothing. I was on here for a while before they even figured it out, bro.
That's right.
See, but
that's right.
See,
I knew Chocolate was a black man, but I thought he was like in his 50s.
No, not age-wise. Age is different. That's another thing.
I'm almost there, though.
I thought you were just Goku with spiky hair and everything.
Yeah, age-wise, that's another thing. Age can trick you, too. Age can trick you, could trick you too. You know what I'm saying? But that's what I was trying to tell Zell Sonos. So shout out to him. We had, or him or her, whoever that is. We was having a good conversation about that.
Ryan, aren't you black?
And
Ryan's black.
Are you asking me?
Say
Yes,
what?
yes, I am.
Yeah, see, because Nathan knows the etymological definition of black. Black is fair, pale. See, when you know the Old English 500 to 1100 etymological definition of Blake, black, you would know that it means pale. So Nathan's actually giving y'all the denotative answer. See?
That's funny. In
So
Dutch, Blake is also
that's-
pale. Literally,
Well, that's what
B-L-E-E-K.
Yeah. Yeah, B-L-E-C, B-L-A-Q, B-L-A-C-K. That really etymologically means pale, fair skin.
Pale, yes.
It's not what they try to push now. That's why
It's
there's
not the
such a
same
big
root as black, though. I think
Huh?
that the etymological roots of the word Blake and black are different.
No. Look up old German English, 500 to 1100. B-L-A-C-K is equivocal to B-L-E-Q, B-L-E-C, B-L-A-C, B-L-A-C, B-L-A-Q, which
dude.
pale.
Yeah, I'll get on that. Just give me a couple minutes. I'll go chase that down. Do you need some coffee to, get your spirits up?
Who, me?
You're gonna set up a presentation for this, John?
Holy
Who you talking about, QE?
Yeah, just make a video about it, man.
Just QE and his white privilege trying to oppress us.
See, that's another
Always the man.
It's Blake privilege.
Just do an impression of QE, D Rose, and everything will be good.
I'm not sure
See,
what
you
that
see,
proves.
you know
Is
who,
it,
hold on, you know who
German
nailed
heroes?
An etymological
Just a
fallacy,
second.
but we'll let it
Yeah.
slide.
Well, more importantly, it's an etymological fallacy as it slips into English. What English does takes Norman, Norse, Anglo-Saxon, Germanic language and picks words to make differentiations. So whilst that may have a derivation in a different language, it's not necessarily comparable or of the same. Like why we British have beef and cows. And different definitions. We take different European words and give them slight intonation within the English language. So I wouldn't be using German derivation of black. You've got to go through English, just English, not continental Anglo-Saxon. Because when it incorporates into British language, it's going to change. It's going to be adopted in a different way. So
yeah,
I
like
would-
birth. I mean, birth, if I'm saying it terribly in French pronunciation. But the difference being that birth means cow.
Yeah. Cow, all of that, all that we use, but then we use all those words to give different parts.
I had
of
that
it.
with Arthur B. Flat, right? He was talking about Balti, and he was talking about containment because Balti in Hindi means bucket. And I was like, oh, right, of course it does. That's what we have in Birmingham at our Balti houses because it's served in the wok. In other words, the closest word they've got to describe that is served in the bucket, right? Served what it's cooked in. But then you get on to
Balti.
Not
Balti.
I'm from Birmingham. Anyway, I was just going to get on to the other one, which was more akin to this, which is naan, which just means bread, right? But if you go into an Indian in Birmingham, you would ask for a naan bread, which is a bread.
It stops having that use. It's got a new use, a specific use in the English, where it's not so specific in the Hindi. Or
So then what's a wok?
be chai, that'd be Mandarin.
No, it's what you throw in a wabbit.
We're talking.
What the hell?
That's the fourth time I said
Okay,
so
Tim.
on the show.
Yeah, that's a bit of a tense thing, yeah.
Shout out to Tim.
Yeah, hope he's having a good knock.
Well, very interesting. But no, I actually do, mean that I'm black when I say I'm black. As a proud transgender black Jewish lesbian, I mean what I say.
All right, is that what the book is going to be about?
You look
is
black.
that what the book is going to be about? What's
Don't
this all
oppress-
about a book?
Don't oppress me, chocolate.
Are you going to bring your black Jewish
want to make
lesbian butt onto the show?
Say again, QE.
One's
Are you
hosting
gonna-
the show.
Are you? Who's hosting the show? I am today. So I didn't finish my thought. Are you going to bring your black Jewish lesbian butt on the show today and discuss the evolved Sea Sparrow missile?
I don't consider that a proof. I've already discussed your low standards in that regard.
Fair enough.
I don't decry the Sea Sparrow missile is an exceptionally good proof. And when I watched Mark Sargent interview that guy, I've forgotten his name, it's such a long time ago, I'm really sorry. I was as overwhelmed and as full of goosebumps and all the rest of the stuff that you could describe about that as anybody else. But I just don't like describing it third hand. You have got a military background, right? So when you do it, it's got more weight, it's got more credence. Now, I don't know, when it comes to talking about science, I can at least lean on the fact that I learned it in 5th grade, right? But when it comes to military stuff, it's the same reason I don't use the sniper example. When I remember when you told me when I was just about to go on Globebusters, I'm just going to shut my door, although I do have to keep an eye on my kids. Although keep shutting the door would mean I'm not keeping an eye on them. You're going to have to put up with my kids screaming, right? When you told me that I was going on Globebusters, and you said the pendulum, use that as your example, tie them to their 15 degrees an hour with their own claim of the pendulum and how it works. I was like, that's bloody brilliant. Because it meant I could chuck away sniper rifle examples, because that's their official, the sniper fires the bullet leaves the turning reference frame. As a result of Earth turning underneath the bullet, it has to be tracked and accounted for. Well, that was a prior example that's semi-official. It's in the books, at least, even if no one actually does it, right? Well, better to just use a pendulum, because I don't need any authority or credits in regards to the military use of sniper rifles when it comes to making an example of how bloody pendulum works. Much better.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense.
I see what you're saying now. I got it.
I don't think he likes it, Kiwi.
I do like it.
What? Well, he said he can't get behind it. And the only thing he can get behind and declare as a proof is celestial navigation. Now, I know I've heard you say that at least 10 times.
Excuse me, the grid is now underground, 6 feet deep, according to Fight the Tight Shirt.
I forgot about that.
What is?
The grid, apparently latitude and longitude. We don't need to talk about that. That's irrelevant, according to Fight the Tight Shirt.
Is that yesterday?
Which is funny. Yeah. The part that I only listened for like 40 minutes because I was kind of laughing. Remember that, Arwen?
Can someone dig that out?
We should have a funeral for the grid because apparently it's irrelevant, even though it used to prove that we were on a globe before.
I want to cover that. I want to take my own advice. I thought about it as soon as I said it on the show, although we are, strictly speaking, still making the show. Anyway, yeah, we need to we need to labour that point extensively. So, Who's got the clip? We need to cover that tomorrow.
It's on Flatsoy's channel. I didn't make any audio clip of it. It's just when I was listening to it. But
is there any chance someone can dig out the timestamp for where that's discussed? Because that is something worth highlighting. I mean, as much as today's show is great, it's far better when it's more contentious. Now, this guy was obviously contending his position, or Flatsoy was contending his globe position, but it wasn't the same as somebody's a bit better known like Craig.
Right.
Did you see the part afterward where Professor Phil Bell got in and was even worse?
Nah, I stopped listening by that point.
It was, but can you imagine? It was even worse than what Craig did.
I left right in the transition between the grid is useless and irrelevant. We should never ever talk about it. To gravity is a force that creates gravity, which he said again. I stopped listening at that point.
That was pretty much the point I stopped listening, actually. Maybe he did it more than once, because I don't recall me listening to him talking about relinquishing the grid at that point, hence me asking. But he must have done it multiple times. And if he did, you are switching off and going, God, that lying scumbag. At a different point in the discussion with Phil Bell, he's done it again where I've tuned in, and I've gone, oh, I can't tolerate this. You know, you kind of are what you eat in that regard. If you sit around and let yourself be poisoned by that, then you've only got yourself to blame. Yes, Clover.
Yep. Yeah, I only listened to it while I was driving. I was even texting while I was driving, which was pretty bad. But I said it in the chat. I said, anytime, listen carefully. Whenever a Glober is telling you, we don't need to talk about this. This is irrelevant. We don't need to focus on it, because you could be damn sure they need to. They just cannot, because it destroys their own claim. So I thought that was kind of funny when this supposed grid that they have claimed for so long, latitude and longitude, proves a globe. That's irrelevant now.
Yeah, it doesn't need a grid, damn it. But how do you then transplace the thing? Yeah, we use the grid, but we don't need it.
But we don't need it. No.
Yeah, we're going to show them where they need it. We're going to show them how the globe requires it, and how any inference of navigation on a sphere is going to necessitate that grid that came from a flat Earth. It's like don't mention the 90, but worse, and we're going to labour this as much as humanly possible. Maybe we should put up a few $10,000 challenges at the same time, just to piss in their faces.
But you know that grid system. It's when you misinterpret that grid system is what gives you the globe, right? Like.
Yep.
So
yeah, we're going to rub that in, John. Yeah, it's exactly what we will be rubbing in.
Yeah, that's we better be laughing a lot while we do it too, because it's getting to the point where this is ridiculous. It's like comedy of errors, and we're not laughing at it.
You think it's just gotten to this point?
I think it got to this point in 2020. I think it's been downhill all the way since 2020.
Yeah, there's not enough laughter.
Also, slight turning point, maybe a turning point. I'm about to get my wife to get rid of Netflix, given how poor we are. Anyway, she watches Netflix, and I unfortunately have to be subjected to some of the garbage she watches. One of the things called Working Mums. And there's a scene in this series where you'd typically expect the flat earther to be the Dumbo that's ridiculed. And in the scene, there's the Dumbo dad, who's a bit of a cuck. And there's the rebellious daughter going out with the uber smart, uber conservative, top of his class kid, who's telling her that the science teacher's not a science teacher. He's just a faker talking about this global warming nonsense, right? Now, the two of them get in trouble, and the Dumbo dad, in telling off this kid, berating this kid because they both got suspended or whatever, tells him the next thing you'll be telling my daughter is that the earth is flat. Now, this is coming from the dumb character. And then the semi-elitist, top of the local community, smart, conservative, well-dressed, well-spoken kid responds, actually, there's a lot of evidence that would suggest that. And the dumb father cuts him off.
What?
Now, it's the first time I've ever seen anything even remotely like that on television. It's not, it's Netflix, but you know what I'm talking about. It's TV, basically, in same piss in a different bottle. Anyway, I was absolutely shocked, because when it started to happen, when they wove it at the start of the show into the plot, I pricked my ears up and said, this will have a flat earth connection, and it'll decry, I hinted to my wife that I knew where it was going, and it wasn't going to be where it ended up, or what I'm now disseminating to you, which is a semi-reversal of the role in terms of how the flat earth was presented in this particular show. It was presented that the Dumbo, very ill-informed dad that's kind of laughed at as being under the thumb of his wife is telling the smart kid that, nah, you'll be telling my kid the earth's flat next. And the smart conservative kid's telling the dad, actually, no, there's plenty of evidence. It just wasn't...
Because
Go on.
the paradigm is shifting. The paradigm is not shifting.
I wasn't going to be the first to say it, Neil, but that's what I was hinting at, yes.
With that in mind, Arwin sent me this yesterday. It's a tweet from Tucker. It's the same sort of thing. He said, what do you think of this? And we had a little chat. And it's Tucker Carlson just making some point, I think, with regards to his departure.
Exactly.
That he's going to reference Flat Earth. And I wasn't sure at first whether he was just being mean. It's not an insult to me. the way he drops it in, but he uses it in a dismissive way, but not to poo-poo it. But if you just listen, it's interesting that it's coming up. This is now Tucker Carlson using it as a reference point. So when we talk about it's getting into the main, it's there. If somebody who's from CNN or wherever he's from, Fox News, yeah, or was, is using it in his rhetoric, that's interesting. And just listen to where he uses it. It's not like Obama goes, we ain't got a time for a meeting of the Flat Earth Society. I'll stop rambling.
Last thing I'll say is they're not offended by craziness. They're not offended by conspiracy. If you go on TV tonight and say, I think the earth is flat, people will just laugh at you. They don't care if you think the earth is flat. It's not a threat to anyone. But if you say what actually happened with Building 7? That is weird, right? It doesn't, what is that?
Right.
If you were to say something like that on television, they'd flip out. They would flip out. You'd lose your job over that. Why? It's my country.
Right.
No point playing anymore. That's the point.
Yeah,
He's using it as a reference. I don't feel he uses crazy thing, but he doesn't attack it. But he, like I said, the important thing, whether he does or he doesn't, he's in the rhetoric now.
I'm really sorry to ask.
Oh, it's very,
sorry to ask.
very much
Just one
in
sec.
the rhetoric now.
Sorry, Chocolate. Who's Tucker Carlson?
Nathan, come on, Nathan.
The number one Fox News presenter that's been recently fired.
Yeah.
Okay, that doesn't mean anything to me. But fine, he's a Fox News presenter that's been sacked and is talking about flat Earth. Are you going to play the clip?
And trust me, he's been educated on the flat Earth.
You going to play the clip?
Just played it. Did you want it again?
Just played it, Nathan.
I didn't hear it. I was telling my daughter to keep quiet though.
Oh, that'll be it. I'll do it again. It's only 20 seconds.
Last thing I'll say is they're not offended by craziness. They're not offended by conspiracy. If you go on TV tonight and say, I think the earth is flat, people will just laugh at you. They don't care if you think the earth is flat. It's not a threat to anyone. But if you say what actually happened with Building 7? That is weird, right? It doesn't, what is that?
Right.
If you were to say something like that on television, they'd flip out. They would flip out. You'd lose your job over that. Why?
There you go.
Relatively clever in terms of how he's twisted it in, I suppose.
Not a threat yet.
But he's designated as a thing that the public would not accept but not get threatened over, right? So he didn't actually give it he didn't dismiss it in doing so. But it seemed like he was gonna. But he kept it neutral.
Yeah, but he still seems like he's kind of saying it's a bit crazy to think that.
Yeah.
Because most
I
people
don't
think it's crazy.
Yeah. I don't know. The jury's out on that one.
I think
he is equating it to the same level as Building 7, which does get an overreaction. That's his point. So Building 7, it's not that crazy. I saw it on television myself. So
Yeah, and we're talking about a guy that went on national television and told people that he thinks the CIA, or there's evidence that the CIA took out JFK. Most mainstream, quote unquote, mainstream anchors ain't gonna do that. So this dude is on a different level.
Well, that's a fact, and they used the mob for you to do that.
Okay. I mean, a lot of the things he's talking about there would be considered baby hoaxes in the alternative truth realm. Whereas the heliocentric deception would be much higher up the chain. Whereas he's just decried it by saying, you can mention flat Earth, people will just laugh at you.
Absolutely cool. I'm happy with that. What a step forward that is. The number one anchor in America is happy to use it in his rhetoric of explaining things. It's there. It's in the public eye now. It's there. Number one dude is referencing it to make his points. That
it's not just him either. Yeah, it's not just him. I listen to a lot of random shit, and flat Earth will come up again and again. And a lot of times in that context, if I say it's flat, that's great. But it always comes up. I hear it all the time, even when I'm listening to things that have nothing to do with that subject. It's in the ether, to use that word.
I was
here's what
listening
I'm
to a Bible
confused.
thing the other day, Chocolate. Just these two old blokes, like Midwest, run a little YouTube show, and they just review scripture and stuff. And he's going through something, and he trips up. He says globe, and he picks himself up. I'm sorry, flat Earth. Carries on, but it was just lovely to hear. Picked himself up. Oops, still in that mindset, but I know it's not. Carries on. Not mentioning it, not pushing flat Earth. Picks himself. Carries on.
Who is that?
I'll get a link for the guys. I'll find it. I'm not sure, but it's just like the scriptural study. Then they do. It was Jacobeans, I think, we were reading. Which I know.
Is it Dean Odell? Not Dean Odell, right?
No, I'll find it. I'll find the name of it for you guys. You won't like it, Neil.
Why?
But the point being, irrelevant of that. The point being, he's just talking, and in his normal rhetoric, he says globe and picks himself up, corrects himself, moves on with his Bible talk. Yeah, it's there. It's fact in his head. Oops, I still slip up now again. But in his head, it's not a point of debate.
Oh, so he slipped up. Like, in other words, when people say it's the best on the planet, a lot of people still slip up like that.
Oops. I mean, on God's flat Earth, yeah.
Perfect. With that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels, together with Element, for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.